And so here we are on our own hero's journey, waxing the car, painting the fence, and scrubbing the floor every single day like slaves. But this looks like bad news, more terror, more wars, more lies, more mass shootings. That's the training that's happening for us right now. That's the wax the floor. It's preparing us to be the hero. But what's about to happen is the common, everyday, reluctant hero is about to step up and say, oh no.
I'm Mark Mueller, and welcome to Truth and Justice League, the podcast. And I'm here with my good friend and very special guest, Mikki Willis.
Thank you for having me, Mark. Good to see you.
Mikki, thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure. About time.
You're a filmmaker.
That's what they tell me.
I met you when you were doing Elevate film festivals
That's
and
right.
those kind of things, which was kind of an impromptu, sort of short-term film production stuff that was very creative. Whatever happened to that?
Okay, so what we did was we created a global filmmaking competition. And this was really an expression, and I should go back a little further to tell you the why first. The what is less interesting than the why. So I made my first film in the late 90s, and I was in New York. The film was finally finished, and I was shopping it for distribution. And that turned out to be the year of 2001. And so I was in New York for 3 days, and that happened to be the time when the World Trade Center was struck. I was in the World Trade Center the day before as a tourist, and sleeping on a friend's couch in Midtown, not far. And when the buildings were struck, we went straight down to ground zero and did search and rescue for 3 days. As you can imagine, it was a life-changing experience, a complete snap to grid for me. What we saw, what we did, picking up body parts and being involved in something that was so beyond the scope of anything that I'd experienced before, that suddenly all the things that I was partaking in Hollywood and the goals that I had acquired, I realized those really weren't my goals. And I had to really stop to ask myself, what happened to me? Like, why am I selling products that I wouldn't use myself? I had a great music video directing career at the time, and how am I treating the women in these videos? I'm letting the industry dictate what I do with my talent and art. And that was never part of my plan. And so I put everything I had in storage. I moved out of LA, and I wanted nothing to do with Hollywood anymore. And it took me about a year and a half to reinvent myself. And as I started to tell colleagues and people that I used to work with why I was out of the business, they expressed a similar desire. Like, this is not what I wanted to do either. I have to now. I have a mortgage. I have, that gets you kind of trapped in dependency. All of them express the same thing too, where it's like, yeah, we're using our craft. We're being used. And they all encouraged me to keep on my path and don't ever, return to that trap. And so I started to really think deeply about, what would I do if I were to return to Hollywood? And the answer was, don't return to Hollywood. Hollywood is its own league. And then just around that time, something came up, and I was watching baseball or football or something, and I realized that there are multiple leagues within the same sport, and they all have, it's the same game but slightly different rules. And I thought, man, maybe I'll create something on my own so that we can dictate and make sure that we're doing what we came here to do. We're serving the purpose that we came here to serve. And so we started Elevate Film Festival. My wife and I did. And what it was kind of a call to the international film community to show us what's right in your community. And so it was 11 different countries participated. And we would send out challenges. Sometimes it would be every festival. It wasn't really a festival. It was a filmmaking competition. We would change the way we did it every time, just experimenting. So one year we drew from a hat assignments, and then we gave those assignments to the filmmakers randomly. And another year, we pre-developed all the different packages. And then we told the filmmakers at a certain time, this is your project. And then we moved on to allowing the filmmakers to, the assignment is simple. It's all on you, but you have now 7 to 11 days to complete a 7 to 11 minute movie to show us what's right in your territory. Because the media, obviously, only wants to focus on humanity at its worst. And so show us the heroes, the stuff that doesn't make the ratings for the networks. Show us the good news of the world. Show us the good people of the world. Show us how phenomenal humanity can be. We dare you to do that. And so they bring back these works. And I think because of the starvation of people really needing to be remembered and to be reminded of, what we're all forgetting, which is our humanity by design, that festival blew up overnight. And so within 3 years, it became the largest single-screen film event in the world. So we were doing shows in arenas with 6,000 people or so. And even the largest film festivals, Cannes Film Festival, they'll have multiple theaters showing maybe at 1,000 people per cinema. But no place did they have 6,000 people watching one giant screen. And so it was a really cool experience to bring everyone into the same room and then to watch this 2-hour series of films from India and Australia and France and United States, all spotlighting something that gets left out of the daily narrative for us. And then that's how we ended up meeting. You came out to Los Angeles and
Exactly.
attended. Were you at the Nokia?
How I found you actually was looking
Oh, yeah.
for the place, and I was looking for a
Yeah.
place in LA. Saw a classified ad, Elevate Films,
Yeah.
711 West 7th Street, and I'm going, okay, wait a second. My kids' soccer numbers were 711. My building next door here is 711, and I'm on 7th Street over here in Austin. And I'm like, this must be a sign. So I got a hold of you, and the rest is history. There's so many topics to talk about. Remembering our humanity
Yeah.
and the role of film in helping us do that.
Well, it's one of the reasons that really since the cradle of civilization, really the dawning of man, that we have been telling each other stories. Because mythologies and storytelling is one way that helps us sort out the cacophony of words within our head, to string them in a linear fashion to understand what our journey is here on this planet we call Earth. And so it's through stories we can understand elements of ourselves that otherwise are ineffable, that we can't even find the words for. And I have been studying for over 30 years now the work of Joseph Campbell, who coined the phrase the hero's journey. And I found at a very young age, when I was, really just getting into filmmaking, I was so fascinated and with his body of work, because I could tell that it wasn't just what I was learning from, what he had learned from, which is the stories that humanity and all different tribes and cultures and eras, is there a commonality within all the stories that we tell ourselves? And there was, and he mapped it out and called it the hero's journey. And it was so profound that is pretty much the standard structure of every screenplay, at least the iconic, memorable screenplays, that Hollywood adapted his theories. And they actually would, refer to the structure of a 3-act play and to allow his hero's journey to create that structure itself. And if you consider all the films that are really the classics, typically there's what they call the reluctant hero, someone who considers themselves to be an ordinary person, and they stumble upon a grave situation. Now, it might be simple, but it's always huge to the hero themselves. Or it could be the meteor coming to destroy planet Earth. And this person is suddenly charged with the responsibility of trying to find help. because they're the ones that receive the data or stumble upon that missing file or the treasure or
Yep.
get some kind of a vision, whatever it might be. But they don't see themselves as the hero. They go off on the hero's journey to find the hero. And what they learn along the way through trials and tribulations, through what Joseph Campbell called shapeshifters and threshold guardians and mentors, all these different characters who either thwart or help the journey of the reluctant hero. And ultimately, what the hero discovers through being pushed into circumstances beyond what they thought they were capable of surviving is that they're capable of so much more, that the force is within and that they are the one. And this is why we have those cliche scenes. As soon as I start telling you the scene, you're going to think of 1,000 movies that you've seen this exact scene in. The moment when the hero is finally in that third act, beaten to the ground, and for a moment, it suspends our belief to think that this person that we've been following for an hour and a half might have met their fate. And then there's a moment when, the finger twitches or the eyes flutter, whatever it is, and then they wake up, like, the hero's alive still. But not only are they alive,
Yeah.
they are reborn. And so they rise. And then there's that cliche moment, right, where they suddenly look at whoever the villain is with a new determination. The innocence is kind of gone, and now it's like the warrior is awake. And they look, and now it's time for the final battle, and they defeat the dragon. And when I read this, I felt the primal connection to these stories. And I was just starting my career, and I was traveling back and forth. I was teaching acting at the time, and I was traveling back and forth and teaching in the Bay Area. I went to an old bookstore, and they had a box filled with, I think it was beta or VHS tapes of Joseph Campbell. And I rented all of them. It was hours and hours. And I just went back and popped them in the VCR and just kept watching and studying that forever. And it really lit me up, because I felt like not only is it teaching me how to tell a proper story, but I understood myself better. And that is the power of mythology. That is the power of movies. We get to the stuff we avoid, and we avoid a lot. We are dopamine addicts, all of us. We want to feel pleasure. And so the stuff that causes us pain, which is usually the most valuable stuff, because we grow from the tragedies, we grow from the struggle. We tend to avoid it more and more. We want comfort and convenience. We don't want to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the time that we're in right now. But I think that we're just about to cross the threshold. Speaking of threshold guardians, there's a lot of people that don't want that to happen. Back into kind of a primal state of an organic way to relate to our planet and to ourselves and to the archetype that we were born into.
It's interesting what you just mentioned. During COVID, I wrote a lot of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
It just started coming into me. And the name of my first book is called Universe Favors the Hero. It starts with a poem that I wrote to my sons as an apology of sorts of where we put you, but that's where we are.
Oh, interesting.
But there's really no choice between just accepting loss and death and trying to do something to save other folks and be of service.
Yeah.
It's not easy. We get hits. We have to learn. We have to adjust. We have to go forward. Let's talk about the power of information, the power of being able to speak freely, and the power of censorship, and maybe the power of propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever you want to start, because I know you got into this.
Yeah, I definitely have had my share of being censored. They say, which I don't know how to even quantify, they say I'm the most censored filmmaker in the world after releasing the Pandemic series started in 2020. And of course, the reason that went so viral, Pandemic 1 is the most seen and censored documentary in history, with, I think at this point, well over 1.5 billion views. I don't know that that'll ever be matched, because I always say half jokingly that we had a captive audience. Everyone was on everyone was on lockdown, and
Yeah.
And it was the first time that we had a global event like that was also didn't make sense to a lot of people. And everyone was looking for answers, and we just happened to hit the mark at the perfect time. And the reason for this, and this will probably relate to something that I say many times during this podcast, is I've come to the conclusion at my age now that life really is divine. And the only thing that feels like it's not divine is the way we relate to what happens, what reality shows us. And so what I mean by that is I lost a brother to a drug called AZT. He had AIDS, and that medicine killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people that could have easily lived with this thing they called AIDS, which is not what people were told it was. It's something else. And it was the medicine, it was the AZT that killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people, and my brother was one of them. And my mother was warned before it actually took my brother's life. His community was telling my mom, hey, that we're all starting to really question whether or not this Anthony Fauci guy, who is the one who prescribed AZT to the world as the wonder cure, if he's a good guy and if this is a good medicine. Because everyone we know, people who have lived with AIDS for 5, 6, 8, 10 years, are dying shortly after they get on the protocol. And so you need to really consider whether or not this is good for David, your son. And my mom was told, when she questioned it, follow the science. Just like we're all being told that right now. And so she kept him on the protocol. She said, listen, it's making him, he's sicker, he's losing weight, his quality of life is terrible, he has migraines, he throws up everything he eats. It's just not. How long is this going to go on? Oh, he's just acclimating to the new medicine, but if you take him off, he's going to die. So you got to leave him on there. So here's my poor mom, single mom, raised 4 kids on her own, and she has to make this really tough decision, and it kills her son. Now, my mom was a cancer survivor for a number of years and had her thyroid removed and would have lived, I'm sure, to a ripe old age. She, as soon as my brother passed, I think the guilt and the shame of knowing that she was warned and that she didn't heed that warning was so heavy for her that this cancer that she'd kept at bay for over 10 years, she suddenly said, take me. And my mother died 34 days after my brother died. And this was a big wake up for me because my mom was everything to me. I mean, she was just, she was an incredible woman, just the sweetest. She was that mother that all the kids called mom. Even though we were raised on welfare, she would find a way to feed the kids that were being neglected. She was always taking care of everyone in the neighborhood. And so it was devastating to me. But it was also one of the greatest gifts. I say, and some people will look at me oddly when I say it, I say that 2 greatest gifts my mom ever gave me was my life and her death. Having to deal with the greatest fear, my greatest fear was losing my mom. Having to deal with that at 23, I think I was 23 years old. First major thing that ever took place in my life like that, of having to just started grieving my brother, and then now mom's gone and I'm kind of on my own. And I have 2 older sisters, but one of them, we had a very distant relationship. We never got into a fight. We're closer now than we were when we were growing up. And I had an older sister who was a second mom to me, so she was always there. She's always been there for me. But the beauty and the divinity in that is that had that not happened for me, and I'm saying that intentionally because I nothing happens to me in this life. Everything happens for me. And when that happened for me, here it is, 30 years later, this COVID thing starts to spread around the world. And suddenly I see this little man suddenly at the helm of this, the response to this, supposed global pandemic. And I think, God, he reminds me of that guy back in the 90s who prescribed AZT to the people, but clearly that guy's got to be in prison or definitely out of business. So actually, let me look this guy up. I don't remember what that guy's name was back then, but it's him. It's him.
Wow.
how in the world? I mean, do we have amnesia?
Oh, we do.
People knew what happened back then. And so the gift of brother and mother passing left me with the awareness, and I had no doubt in my mind and my heart, that something really bad was about to take place globally, because I know at least that guy has done very evil things. And then I started really studying his history and realizing that he's gone through many different pandemics and outbreaks, and it was always the same MO, like medicine that really works being demonized, and medicine that kills being pushed up front, patentable medicine. Like, what is going on here? And so people ask me a lot, how did you know your film was released May 4th? And so that means
2020.
2020. That's like, how do you get a film shot and edited and out that quick? It's like, because the moment I saw him, I knew. And so now we're, and then, half the world hated me for a long time. And now when I go to events, it's amazing, because I'm often brought to tears, because I'll have people come up to me and that will say, that little movie saved their families' lives. And I don't take credit for that, because I know that we're all instruments in service to something much greater than us. But to be able to hear that the work that I contributed to in the form of a little low-budget documentary was able to get out around the world to at least give people a reason to hesitate, a reason to look deeper, or a reason to say no. And I thought, so suddenly my life story changed from my mother and brother died, unfortunately, due to bad medicine, but that they actually, in some divine way, sacrificed themselves to give me the awareness so I could do that. Their two little lives saved millions of lives.
Yeah.
And it's when you look at things like that, when you start to navigate this life through the lens of what I call divinity consciousness, like, what if it were perfect? It doesn't feel like it, doesn't seem like it, it's painful and all these things, but what if this is what is meant to happen? What would I get from this? What might be available for me to learn from this? And I found so much that to be such a more powerful and valuable choice for my life than what I used to do, which was to regret what was happening.
Yeah.
And to live into that regret, which takes years to heal from it then. But things move through fast now. Some unfortunate thing will happen and we'll lose a ton of money or something. And it's just like, okay, must be a good reason for it. Moving on. And certainly something comes up and we just got burned for $50,000. I've had more money in the past few years than I've ever had in my life. And I felt like I want to be generous. And so anyone I saw in need, I helped them. And I know you've helped a lot of people in your life. And some of those people kind of scammed me and didn't pay back. Someone really in need that, I gave her $60,000 and she just hasn't paid a penny back since then. And so I could be really angry at that. But what I've noticed is, because I helped her in a time of need, and yet she didn't appreciate that enough to actually make an effort to pay that back. And now I just go, well, that's on her. She's going to have to deal with that. And what comes to me is always twice-fold. Somehow some donation comes in from some other place, and it just happens to be the exact double amount of what was lent, or something happens, right? I've had that happen so many times.
Yeah.
We had a couple of years ago something like that happen where there was an event that was going on, and a freedom event, and somebody reached out and said, we're about to lose our location, and we need $25,000 or we're going to lose our whole location, and we'll pay you as soon as the event is over. I gave them $25,000 and the event was over, and they go, sorry, we didn't make enough money. And then it was like the next day, Nadia goes, sweetheart, someone just donated $25,000 to our nonprofit, just out of the blue, right? And it's like that quick. And so there's something really to say about, riding this ride with your hands up. It's a roller coaster ride for sure. But are we going to be cursing every flip and turn? or are we going to put our hands up and enjoy the ride? Because I've decided that that's the way I'm going to ride this ride.
I like that idea. I like that idea. Let's talk a little bit about censorship, okay? Because there was a lot of censorship, and there still is in different arenas. But let's talk about your experience with censorship. What did you see?
Well, there were a few hard days, really tough days. I don't want to lie. There was a moment when now we had 2 years before the pandemic was announced, the Thomas fires in California took our home. And so we lost 8,000 square foot home, everything we own, including our car. And the only thing we got out with was our cell phones and our hard drives. That was, we had a few roommates and everyone was filmmakers. So all we could think of is hard drives. No baby photos, no art, nothing like that. Just get the hard drives, because that's where all of our work was stored, and some of the work belonged to paying clients, so we didn't want to lose their work. And so we end up moving to a tiny place, and it was actually lovely because it was just my wife and I in this little duplex. And my office, I rented this little office space. Our house that burned, which we lost all of our film equipment, all of our production studio was part of we had a third story, and it was all up at the top of the house. And so now I have an office down the street, about 2 blocks away, and I walk home one day, and it's right after everything went really viral. And, I made the mistake of going online and reading everything and going, oh my. And it's all these people, that I've been watching for years, and celebrities and top news anchor people and Rolling Stone magazine and Time magazine, all these major publications. And they're all talking about me and Judy Mikovits, the scientist that I featured in Plandemic 1, and none of it's good. She's a crook and which, the truth of that matter is she became a whistleblower, and she discovered how corrupt science had become. She was working in a lab, and they tried to get her to do something illegal, and she said, there's no way. She's a very honest person. And so they said, okay, now that she knows what we were trying to do, we have to get dirt on her so she won't talk. So they took a notebook of proprietary information out of the lab, and she was renting a house from the owner of the lab. So he had keys to the house, and one day when she's in the lab, they went and planted it in the room and then called the police, and they showed up and they found this notebook, and they said, oh, she stole that from the laboratory. Locked her up for 5 days, sued her, took all of her money, and said, that's what you get. Now you understand the power that we have. You better never say anything. So she wrote a book and said everything. And that's the kind of woman she is. Yeah. And she said, you're not going to scare me. And she went all out and telling the truth. And so I'd met her a year and a half before the pandemic was declared. And somebody was like, you need to meet this woman. And because she's got an incredible kind of an Aaron Brockovich story, one woman against the corrupt industry of science. And I met with her, and I was already committed for 18 months to other movies, and I felt really bad that I wasn't able to get her film made. And so when this pandemic was announced, she's the first one I called. She was the only scientist I knew at the time. I know a lot of them now. And I called her and I said, Judy, what do you see? And she started going off. And I said, I'm gonna come over. She lived 20 minutes from me. And I went over, I sat down with her. And she just started, if you've ever seen Judy talk, she just goes, right? In all directions. And I said, let's stop. If you don't mind, let's go back to my studio. And I just feel the need to record this, kind of like what we're doing here, just a little podcast. I thought I would just cut it together and have a little 30-minute podcast out there, and maybe warn some people, give this, her perspective to the world, so people could see there's another side to it. But that turned into Plandemic 1. And so, getting back onto what you asked me, now I'm seeing the smears smearing Judy really hard. Now, they had a hard time with me because everything I had done up until that point, I was a far left progressive Democrat. Only thing they could see on social media was he voted for Obama. He's fighting for Native Americans at Standing Rock. He's done all this stuff in inner city with underserved communities and minorities and women, and we can't do our normal slur. We can't call him a far right whatever. And so they started saying, well, I'm a grifter. I'm just doing this to make money on the pandemic. And of course, that really set people off because, I mean, there are people who did that. But what a horrible thing to do, right? So that really, then all the media got involved, and here's this slick filmmaker out of Ojai, California, a little town of 8,000 people, who's taken upon himself to profit off of a pandemic. Which is why I also, after I saw that, it bothered me so much that I was like, you know what? I will never make a penny off this series. And I've been offered a lot of money. I turned down $17 million cash to share the licensing of the Plandemic series. And I've not made one penny on the movies. All of my movies are free. They're at plandemic.com if anyone wants to see them. And they're all there absolutely for free. So I thought it was really strange, even though I wasn't charging a penny for anything that I'd released, they still said I was a grifter, that I was doing this to make money. And I did the same with my book. I made a deal with my publisher when I got an offer to do the Plandemic book, which actually went #1 on Amazon. I said under one condition: as soon as you make your money back, it goes free to the people. And they said, wow. That's the first time we've had that request. They said, you don't want to make any money on this book? And I said, no, I can't. It's not that I don't want to, it's I can't. I made a vow to myself and to the world, and so I really can't do that. And so they stuck to it. And the moment they reached, they go, okay, we're even now. So I said, great, it's now free to the world. Take it. And I mean, you have to buy it from them, but I gave it away. I did a whole audio book, and it's on our site, and it's free for everyone. So the censorship part was shocking to me. It was Plandemic. I've been told by several sources who know what they're talking about that Plandemic is the most censored word in the world. There's no hashtags. There's nothing you can find on it. And it was shocking because, and I had a lot of people getting a hold of me saying, you know, their sharing of my movie or even mentioning it got them canceled or censored.
Oh yeah.
So it didn't only wake up people to the dangers, the potential dangers of COVID or mandatory vaccines or Anthony Fauci or whatever else the movies pointed towards, but it also woke up. I've had a lot of people come to me, like one in particular. She was like, I'm a 77-year-old grandma and they canceled me. You know, and I said, yeah, they don't care. It's like, if you share my work, they're going to stop it. So then people started saying, well, there must be something there. Because you can talk about anything online, flat earth or whatever you want to talk about, and everyone's fine with it, whether it's wacky as it might be. But you can't even see Plandemic. So people went, I want to see it more now. And it's amazing that they haven't learned that, right? Because, I mean, we learn that as children, right? Don't tell a child never to cross the road, because as soon as you turn your back, they're going to cross the road. How about you lead them across the road and help them and show them what's on the other side, you know? But our government goes, no, you know, it treats us like these bad children and say, no, we don't want you to see anything. And then they use the excuse, well, it's dangerous. Dangerous misinformation is what they said about everything. And so one day I walk home from my office after going through all this headlines, and I walk in the room, and my wife is like sitting up reading a book or something on the bed, and she looks at me and she goes, are you okay? And she later said, she goes, you were just like, you look like death. I was just white. And I sat down on the bed and I just went, whew. She goes, what's going on? And I said, oh my God, it's bad. I had no idea what. I mean, when I pushed the button, we actually said it was May the 4th, 2020. We said, may the 4th be with us. Bam! And we hit the button because I said, my life's never going to be the same after that. It's going to change. But I had no idea to that extent. And I thought, I'm done. I will never make another movie. But then I was like, you know what, though? But if this is it for me, I went out with a bang. And if this does save lives, which I'm already hearing from people online, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I knew something was up, and I'm showing my parents this, and this movie's going to save lives. So if that ends my career, then, you know, I'll find something else. I was already kind of surrendering to that. But then it became really weird because it went from all this, you know, thank you, thank you, thank you. I never had seen so many thumbs up emojis and heart emojis in my life coming at me on all of social media. And then they shut me down. And then I start to see, like, I'd go online and I'm like, wait, I know that person. And it's like, friends are turning on me. like friends I've known for 20 years who know me really well, and they're telling everyone, like, I'm sorry that I ever let this guy in my life, and I just want everyone to know, that will never have anything to do with him again. I disagree with him. He's gone to the dark side and so irresponsible, and it shocks me because I've always known him to be a good man, but I don't know what happened to him. They're just making sure that everyone knows they're no longer associated with me. And I was like, wow, that's how shallow my friendships are. And, a lot of it was due because there's a certain type of archetype that Hollywood attracts. So some people were my friends because I was a director and I might put them in a movie or whatever it might be, but it's just not, and they don't want to disrupt their business. They're trying to make it. And I was a negative part of their lives that could harm their next job. And so it was hard long story short is it was difficult for a period of really realizing, like, it is amazing when you think, like, I can't communicate with anyone now. I mean, it got so bad that there was no communications I could put out to the world. I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't, no podcast would have me. No one would talk to me. So it was just like, this is not what I expected. But it taught me in the end. It's like, I look at, you look at the Constitution, you go, it's interesting that the Constitution, the very first amendment, is about free speech. And then you look at biblical text and you're like, in the beginning was the Word. I never thought how important our word is. Like our word, we speak this world into existence. And when you are gagged like that, and I didn't know if maybe this could be permanent, maybe I'll never be online again. I didn't know. And I didn't know how long it would take. I knew what I did was right. I never doubted that, or I wouldn't have put it out in the world. I knew we were right. I did deep research, and we've double, tripled, quadruple checked every single claim. So I never felt like, wow, I hope I don't get, dragged into, being wrong. And if so, I deserve to be canceled for that reason. But it was because what we put out was so accurate. And so and then I realized, like, that is another gift of this, another part of that divinity conversation, is that this is why our voices matter so much. This is what we must do, is speak out and never let them censor us. And particularly with the internet, because the internet, for better and worse, I mean, it's causing a lot of problems in the world. It'd be wonderful to go back before we had any of this technology, but it's here. And the upside to it is it's the first time in our history, human history, where there was a takeover of such mass scale that the people had the ability to communicate in back channels. So when Mao Zedong in the 1960s was taking over China, 1.2 to 4 billion people, to corral them into the model of communism, they had 3 state-sponsored TV stations. They had no alternative information, no outside sources, no internet, no papers to tell them that this is actually, there's a history behind this and you should learn it. All the books didn't exist so they could know the history and to be able to recognize what was happening to them. So they all fell in line. And that's why we have today, in this year, the communist, the Communist Party of China still in power. And what we had, and what a lot of nations around the world had, is this: when they locked us in our homes, they assumed they had the script ready. They rehearsed with something called Event 201, which, if people don't know that, watch
Right.
Plandemic 2 and see that they totally rehearsed this, had it scripted, seeded all the reactions into some of the big tech people so they would know how to respond as soon as they pulled the trigger. And yet one major fail, and that is they underestimated the people. They thought we'd go in and sit down and go Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and just let's finalize this hypnotic state.
Yeah.
Instead, we went Telegram, Signal, boom, boom, boom. Hey, are you seeing this? Are you seeing that? And we started sharing information. And that's what really sparked what I feel that we're in right now, which I call the Great Awakening.
When Fauci showed up, I watched myself go through this process. I didn't know who he was, so I didn't have your background, okay? I'm seeing this guy who's at a central casting, as the sort of dour-looking, scientist kind of guy, and doesn't have a big personality, who knows a lot, and he's there to be the expert. Those kind of guys, I call them the men in gray, because they get hauled out all the time. They did this with the Warren Commission.
Oh yeah.
When I was in law school, my first semester, my legal research and writing teacher was Elizabeth Warren. Mm-hmm. Okay. And my teaching assistant was a second-year law student at the time, whose name is Philip Zellicoe. But Philip Zellicoe was a student, he was a good law student, smart guy, et cetera, and we were friends. Philip Zellicoe went on to work for the Bush administrations, become best friends with Condoleezza Rice, and was the executive director of the 9/11 Commission.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, Elizabeth Warren was just sort of a side bit to that, because nobody predicted at that time that she would be a big political person.
I actually have a quick little story about Zellicoe.
Oh.
So,
well, we're going to get censored right now.
So, someone I just met this year, actually, William Rodriguez. He's got an incredible story, and it's amazing that we both have 9/11 stories. His is so much far beyond mine. He was a janitor in the Twin Towers, Latin guy, and he ended up saving a lot of lives. He went in and out of the buildings to save people, but he had a whole testimony because he and some of his cleanup crew felt explosions happen. They were on a lower floor, and the explosions happened below them. And so he was invited or accepted to be part of the 9/11 Commission. And what he told me a couple of months ago was that he had 22 witnesses, people that were with him that saw what they saw. And Zellicoe refused any of their testimonies because they all had this same story of saying there was explosions below us. It lifted us up. And they struck all that out of the final report and refused these 22 witnesses that William Rodriguez brought to the table. And so the reason that we met recently, my good buddy of 20 years or so, Esai Morales, who is an incredible actor. He plays the bad guy in the latest
Mission Impossible. Yeah.
There we go. And Esai has been friends with William for a number of years, and so he connected us and said, I think maybe it's time to tell William's story in a scripted big movie. And so we're looking into that right now. We're looking into perhaps scripting his story, because it's incredible what he did, and he's such a humble, beautiful human being, and he's incredibly articulate. And he's been out speaking, pounding the pavement. It's amazing he's still alive. Just to tell his story, because I have all my stories too. I was in Building 7 before it fell, and I saw the damage. There's no reason that building should have fallen, and so there's it's a lot of stuff's finally coming out right now. Richard Gage, a good friend of mine who created Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Oh yeah.
We've been speaking since for about 20 years as well, and he keeps me updated from time to time. Every 3 or 4 years we talk. And there's some progress, the new investigations that are happening now, because we've had, I think now that the world is awake to the real barrier before was people just in denial. Like there's no government would do this.
Right.
Like, okay, I know we can blame it on terrorists, but you people are saying it's an inside job, which would have meant, we don't think a foreign country could have come and rigged these buildings. And so, but we just can't get with the idea that anyone within the U.S. government would participate in something like that. And now after COVID, people are going, yeah, I can see how that might be true. And so now there's people waking up to go, let's take a look at that closer. And how is it that in history there have only been 3 still constructed high-rise buildings that have collapsed into their own footprint due to fire or related damage? And that is World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7, all on the same day. And it's never happened before. There have been a lot of high-rise fires. And so people just go, the odds of that is just astronomical. There's no way that so, and the Building 7 was really, there's a lot of very important information stored in Building 7. A lot of very, very important Enron and all kinds of stuff that would have exposed a lot of things. And so that one, Richard Gage has done a really great job at saying, let's set the Twin Towers aside for a moment, because they were actually hit with the planes, and that's a difficult conversation. But what happened to Building 7? Wasn't hit by any planes, had minor fire damage, and there's no reason it should have fallen. And so even people who are the last to believe in any kind of conspiracy theories, structural engineers will say, I don't believe our government had anything to do with it, but I can guarantee you 100% that building was a controlled demolition, just the way it fell. For a building to fall that way, when buildings do fall, they'll lean, or part of them will collapse or whatever, because you have the structure under them. And what should have happened with the World Trade Center was the top, if anything, would have just fallen off, because that's where it was hit, way up high. And so how does a small piece of a building compress 100 floors straight down to ash? How does it do that? If all of the structure wasn't taken out. And so there's enough smart people now that have looked at it for 20 some odd years to say, the buildings were pulled. We know that. So now we got to look at why and who. We know why and who. But at least that's now, I think that's another one of those unintended consequences, and even if I can say gift of COVID, is that people are awake enough right now to consider that as possibility, which is 20 years they weren't. They just weren't open.
Right.
It can't be. And they don't want to believe it, because you don't want to live in a nation. Who wants to live in a nation where your, government, dark, shadowy aspects of your government would collaborate with foreign entities to stage the largest terror attack in history, human history, and to create such panic and such terror that took us into wars for decades, where more millions of people that are slaughtered. And the continuous war, America's got some karma to deal with, because we have gone from war to war to war to war. And a lot of the times it was based upon what is known as a false flag.
Yes.
And that is, and I would say the vast majority of war that we have engaged in was because of a false flag. For those of you who don't know what a false flag is, it's something is staged, a fake terror attack or something horrific. And then that motivates the people through rage and fear and terror into saying, okay, we now vote for war, go bomb them. And I was saying that for the first 2 days when I was at the World Trade Center. I said several times, bomb these bastards. Because it was dealing with women would come up with pictures of their husband and say, please, have you seen him? I know he's alive. And you know he's not. It's like, if he hasn't come home, he's not alive. If you haven't heard from him, if he hasn't called you, he's not alive. And it was heartbreaking to see that. And so you get really angry, and you want to react. And that reaction was go bomb them. So the propaganda worked on me, because I'm an anti-war person. But in that moment, I was like, no, I'm all about war. Let's go to war. And that's what they do. It has to be so big that it terrorizes everyone else to think, if we don't take care of the problem now, if we don't neutralize it, then we're all going to end up like the poor people, the 3,000 people that died in the World Trade Center. And so we're going to vote for war for right now. So they know they have to do this. But I mean, Vietnam and World War I, World War II. If you research the USS Liberty, which happened in June 8th of 1967, where, that one was with Israel, right? And they're bombing on a U.S. ship. That was a planned false flag. But that ship wouldn't sink. It took hundreds of torpedoes. And the men that were on board were waving, like, please stop, and waving to the men in the boats and the submarines or whatever, saying they're putting their flag up, and it's like they didn't understand that they knew that was a U.S. ship. It was intentionally attacked.
And they actually got all the way up to the top levels of admiral and to the president,
Yeah.
Lyndon Johnson, who
Yeah.
said, "I'm not going to do
That's
anything
right.
about this."
Lyndon Johnson, we go, I
Yeah.
mean, what a bad guy that guy was. But,
Ugh.
and so now you have these men, that have, for 50 years they've been kept quiet. There are like 50 survivors at this point from USS Liberty. And they've been silent, and they've been silent not out of choice, but they all have their own story to tell. Like one man who's been making the rounds said that he was at a restaurant with his family one day, and a man came in and sat at the booth with him and said, "You were on the USS Liberty." And he goes, "How did you know that?" And he told him the intelligence, that he works for. And he said, "We're watching you. Be careful." And he left.
Yeah.
And he goes, "This is what they've been doing to us for 50 years. It's just reminding us every now and then to keep quiet." And he said, "But now we're too old. Now we're in our 80s. And it's like, I'm ready to die for this now. I'm not going to live with this secret anymore." So a lot of these men are speaking out to say, we were intentionally attacked, and it was a joint effort between Israel and the U.S. to sink our ship, to kill all of our men. Several died, so that they could then justify more war.
There was a well-known plan that was being circulated, the early 60s, called Operation Northwoods.
That's right.
That was designed to make it look like Cuba had done something on American soil and use that as a justification for going and attacking Cuba. Kennedy said no to that. You go back and look at these things. You want to go, well, I'll believe this one, or maybe I'll believe that one. And then you start looking at this stuff, and more official stories just not true. The problem is you can't trust our government with a lot of things.
What can you trust them with?
I don't know, I don't know, Mikki, because I'm a kid who grew up in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Okay, small town, and
you can trust them to come after you for tax evasion.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I at that time I thought, the government was protecting us and watching out for us.
I've been embedded in politics, which blows my mind, because I was really good at avoiding politics most of my life. And then I actually was invited to go on the road with Bernie Sanders in 2015. And I was in full support of Bernie Sanders, full-fledged Bernie bro. And it was on the road with him that I actually had my political awakening. That's when I started to kind of see how the sausage is made, as they say. I was behind the curtain, had an all-access pass, and got to meet all the people that were stumping for him. The one beautiful thing that came out of that was, my friendship with Tulsi Gabbard, which continues today. We became very good friends, and met her backstage at a Bernie rally. But it was shocking to me, because I was so all in for him. And I was all in for him because of my experience of growing up. Growing up, as I mentioned earlier, with a single mom on welfare. His rhetoric really reached me. It was like, yeah, we need someone who's anti-corruption and corporation and is talking about the people at the bottom, because that's how I was raised. And man, I remember just saying, I wish we had someone like him when I was growing up that could help us. And I'm on the road with him, and I wasn't even listening to him critically, because I was so smitten by his message. But what woke me up was every stop I would interview the locals. We would stop at, we did a whole RV tour from California to Philadelphia. And we would stop at little hometowns. We'd have barbecues in parks and stop at community centers. And, it was a real grassroots meeting the local people. And a lot of times it was inner city and people that I could really relate to. And part of my job, because I was creating media to build his grassroots campaign, part of my job was to interview all the locals. And so I started interviewing all these people. I would just grab them out of the crowd and say, hey, do you want to do a quick little interview? We're doing an interview. Come on the bus, the motorhome or whatever. Or we can do it right here. And I'd interview these people. And one by one, I started recognizing, like, God, a lot of these people are wearing communist paraphernalia. Like, what? This is the second guy I've seen today with a Che Guevara hat or a sickle and hammer sticker on his laptop, or water bottle, or a linen shirt. And I'm like, what? Like, in my whole life, I've not seen people wear this stuff, but I'm seeing it a lot. So I started asking his followers, like, what is this about? Is that a sickle and hammer on your laptop? Oh, yeah. Why? That's a communist symbol. Yeah. Are you in favor of communism? And then they started, because I was known for being Bernie's videographer, they're like, felt it was safe. They're like, you don't know that? No, what? Like, that's what this is all about. You don't know. Karl Marx instructed all of his followers that communism is the goal, but for now we must call it socialism. This is all a stepping stone. We want communism. And I was uh, like, what kind of communism? Because I know socialism has killed a lot of people. I'm here because Bernie calls it democratic socialism, which I don't fully understand. Actually, let's talk about that. What can you define that for me? What is democratic socialism? It'd be like it's socialism by and for the people. So it's the people helping the people? Yeah. And where does the help come from? Well, we want to lift up all the people who don't have money, and then we want to tax the people who do have money, and so that everyone on the bottom, there's this gap between wealth and poverty just shrinks. So and I went, well, that kind of sounds good in some way.
Sure.
But in another way, I know some wealthy people that are really good people, and it kind of sucks to think that the hard work they put in, that now they're going to be paying 50, 60, 70% taxes, and their wealth is gone for, basically crushing the American dream. And, the godmother of my kids sold her company for $200 million. She was a single mom and just happened to create a health bar that went through the roof. And so she's in that 1% class. I don't know if I feel good about taking all of her wealth away, because I know how hard that woman worked to get it. So that's could be weird. But I said, but here was the clincher. As I said, who's collecting the taxes? And they would just kind of go, well, I guess, yeah, the government, I guess, would have to collect the taxes. And I went, are you happy with the way the government spends your tax money now? No. And I said, so you want to give them more? Help me understand this. Like, something's not adding up here, that you want the federal government, we all pay more. Like, I'm already feeling like a third of my income going to, of everything I earn going to the federal government when I don't even see the results of it already sucks.
Right.
And how much are you, what are you guys talking about? Like, what percentage? And they're like 50 to 65%. You want to give the government half of everything we earn? And then you think they're going to actually distribute that in a fair way that's going to lift up the people on the bottom? That's when I went, what have I gotten myself into here? I should have looked deeper into this. And I didn't call myself an investigative filmmaker at the time. I was just making documentaries. I didn't even know how to really research at the time. I do now. It's all I do now. I'm obsessive. But that's what woke me up, and I went, something's wrong here. And then I realized, well, Bernie, in a lot of ways, he is undercover Trojan horse to usher in this thing. It's not about socialism. And everyone admitted to me, it is about communism. And they were really passionate about this is the model. And I made a film. You came to the show here at Long Center, and what year was that? 2023 that The Great Awakening came out.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of my stuff is a year or two ahead of the curve. I'm not like Alex Jones, where it's 30 years ahead of the curve. I don't have to wait as long as him to be validated. It's much better that way. But now people are going, because when Great Awakening came out, there were a lot of people, critics and people that were going, like, he's stirring up this old Red Scare about communism. Like, what is he talking about?
Sure.
The pandemic guy's now, he's lost his marbles and he's doing stuff about communism. Now people are like, hold on, who's about to win mayor of New York? He's a devout communism, now all these people are starting to show their true colors and call socialism communism. They're starting to do it now. So people are going, you need to re-release that movie, because I don't think anyone understood that was really happening in America, but it is. And so, that was the real wake up for me politically, to realize, like, well, we have to be careful, because this is all, I call it weaponized compassion. It's one of the reasons that when you look at the demographics of the people that are still supporting that stuff, it's largely middle-aged women. And one of the reasons for that is nothing to do with IQ. It's because women are more emotional than men. And so they prey on them, because if you can get someone to be emotional, chemically what that does to us, it actually shuts down part of our decision-making ability. And we end up going with whatever we feel the solution is to alleviate the pain that we feel by feeling empathy for the proposed situation that the politicians are using to leverage what they call democracy, which is mob rules. And so I, being raised by a single mom, 2 sisters, and a gay brother, I'm very emotional. And so I got pulled in hook, line, and sinker by the rhetoric. And I'd like to think today I'm older and wiser, and I don't, but who knows? Because I was such a blind spot then that it was shocking to me. I had to come out, online and say I was wrong. And then I got attacked. Like you mentioned when you talked about pandemic, you got attacked. I came out just to tell people, hey, I just came off the road with Bernie and I'm kind of shocked and it's not what I thought it was. And boy, they came after me. It was the first time that I had experienced that level of attack at the end of 2015, where I went from, thank you, you're a hero, and we love you, to you're a traitor. If I ever see you on the street, and I was like, I'm on the inside here with this guy. I'm trying to tell you a perspective that not too many people get to see. You don't want to hear that? No, they don't want to hear that. They want to be right. And they don't want to have to deal with the feeling of being wrong, the discomfort of this guy came to save us, and now you're crushing all my hope, which is how they took it.
Wow.
But it was a great primer for me because that, then a few years later I released Plandemic and I already had that, felt like, oh, there's that familiar sting again of how quick the world turns on you. And before the cameras were turned on, we were talking about that because that's an interesting thing that happens now where you can have somebody just like they're just a hero and everyone loves them and then they say one wrong thing and then everyone's like, I don't like them anymore. And I think that that's part of the design, part of the divide and conquer tactic is to make us so fragile, so frivolous that the level of deep honor and integrity and loyalty that we are now bonded by agreements instead of bonded by love. I mean, that's what it was forever, right? We just feel a chemistry, a connection with somebody. I love this guy. I love this woman. We're together because the experience of you is wonderful and valuable for me in my life. And I want to be around you. That's what bonded friendships. Now it's like, what do you believe in? And now you can be like, I'm all for gay marriage. I'm all for this. I'm all for, trans rights, and I'm all for this. But I don't know that I want biological men competing with my daughter in contact sports. You're out. That's it. You got to check every box. And that's part of the manipulation, the mind control, because what it takes, and this is going back to literally a primal part of our makeup. When we were in tribes trying to survive the wild in prehistoric times, being ostracated from our tribe meant death. We had to stay in good terms with our tribe, because if we got exiled from our tribe, then we either get killed by the wildlife or by opposing tribes. Opposing tribes are not going to take us in. They just kill you. And so you had to be in a collective to survive. And so it's wired into us that, well, we can have little disagreements, but it can't be too big. Because then if I'm out of the tribe, then I'm alone and I'm dead. And so that still lives with us, and we have to grapple with it. We have to understand that, look, those days are over. And there's no more woolly mammoths coming to eat us. And if we disagree and our tribe leaves us because we have a differing viewpoint, let them go. And that's what I learned from COVID is one more short story.
Yeah.
2008 or 7, I think it was, I was developing an online distribution platform. You remember Play It Forward?
Oh, yeah.
I was just in the groundworks of developing that. So I was learning and studying what they call user interface, user experience. I knew nothing about it, but it was fascinating to me. I never even thought there is a lot of work that goes into it. When you look at a social media platform, they test what color the buttons are, where they are, whether they make sounds, whether they when you press them, they actually respond, what words, and then what, after you do that click, what should come up next. And it's all to hold what they call sticky, to keep it sticky so you stay there. And I'm studying this right at the time that Facebook switched. Their original button was awesome. So if you said something or did something or put a video out that they liked, Mark, awesome. I like it. And then right in the middle of me studying this work, Facebook changes it to like. And I remember going, God, everything I'm studying here, this is kind of the antithesis. This doesn't make sense. Awesome was a really great button. Why would they change it to like? Because now it's weird. Because now it's like I'm being liked or disliked. What a weird personal thing to, but now everyone's just so used to it. All the social media, what do they call it now? Like. YouTube, it's universal now. That's part of the mind control. It got us all addicted to being liked. Liked is now a currency. I put a video out and I go, oh wow, I got 5,000 likes.
Yep.
I did good. I'm a good boy. I'm doing good for the community. Oh, I got down likes. Up, thumbs down. So that's bad. And so our whole lives become about saying stuff and doing stuff to be liked. Because the more likes you have, the more that video is seen, the more revenue you make, ad revenue, whatever it is, the more followers you get. I don't even like that word. And I didn't realize this until pandemic came out. And I started seeing my likes just go, and I was like, crushed. And I thought, oh my God, they got me. I care that someone has given me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like that, when did I become that shallow that I'm so, I'm not afraid of going to prison or getting killed or any of these things. I just can't take the fact that people don't like me.
Or can they show the views? Sometimes they'll show you the number of views you get. And at least you know they looked at your stuff. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, but if I post something that's interesting on science or one of these other topics, dude, I mean, it's like into a vault someplace and nobody sees it.
I've been testing this the last few months.
Yeah.
I release positive news and it gets very little engagement, but the moment it's a scandal or whatever, people are addicted to it. It's nuts. It's another problem we're dealing with right now. We're getting dopamine hits off of bad news.
Yeah.
It's confirmation bias, right? It's like, I want to know that the Democrats are bad. I want to know that Republicans are racist. I want you to confirm what I believe inside me. And so when I post political stuff or negative stuff, it gets the most views. And so, but that's an algorithm also. And if you understand who's running all this stuff, then you can understand that there's a war happening at the micro level from the inside out. And part of that is they are incentivizing and rewarding us to share. We're doing the work that the media, no one's watching the media anymore. And so now we're the media. And so to your point, we should be sharing more good news. But they're rewarding us for sharing negative news because they're going, okay, if no one's watching the mainstream media anymore, then we need the people to pick up the baton and start sharing the scary news because we don't want them getting uplifted. The moment we get uplifted, it changes everything, right? I mean, our cells come alive, our immune systems boost. Everything changes when we're feeling. That's why, we relate to it as, how are you feeling today? I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, whatever. It's like there's an up and a down. And they want us down. Because then that's when our ability to critically think, we kind of jump into that fight or flight movement because, now we're in a protection mode. We're not in a creative mode. And a creative mode is where we create solutions. And so that's the other troubling thing that people need to wake up to is I do a mixture of good, and I want people to know the bad stuff that's happening. I'm not going to avoid it, but I also try to counter that with good news every now and then.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how people can find you and support you on the things that you're doing.
So the films can be seen at plandemic.com. And then I have a new website there's a landing page up right now, but the whole site will be up here in about a month or so. And I'm excited about it. I have this incredible team that I'm so busy making movies that I just haven't had time to create the infrastructure around me that I should have so that I could make more progress. And so a very dear friend of mine was like, let me take the lead and let me get this all built for you. And so they're doing an amazing job. And so that's going to be MikkiWillis.com, MikkiWillis.com. And we are finishing up a movie right now called Code of Creation. It's very fascinating. It is with the inventor, really incredible guy. He runs a company called LifeWave. And when this film was brought to me, I almost didn't take the meeting because I found out that LifeWave is an MLM, and I, like for good reason, have a lot of judgments about that.
Right.
And I get on the phone call with him anyway, and I just love the guy. He's like humble and sweet and sincere. And I thought, wow, really? And I get on a second call with him, and I'm like, I like him even more now. And I like the idea of this movie. He's made some discoveries. He's been doing cancer research, and if you've seen these little circular patches, people wear stem cell patches. They're very popular right now. You'll see them on the back of necks.
Right.
You'll see them on wrists and people helping with carpal tunnel. He created a stem cell patch that is hugely popular, and that's really what launched LifeWave into the stratosphere. I went to an event, and I think they have like 1 million people now as part of their force. It's huge. It's the largest one in the world, and I was blown away at the integrity, at the level of humility that all of the staff works from. And so I ended up saying, all right. And the movie's called Code of Creation, and basically it couldn't have come at a better time, because he's found a very unique way to infuse light, the frequency of light, into water. And what it does to the body is a rebalancing from all the different environmental toxins and damage that we've done to our natural system. And he discovered this through his cancer research by studying animals that age very slowly, that live hundreds of years. And he found a code within nature that actually, oddly enough, corresponds with chapters in the Bible. And he's a Christian. And he found these kind of by chance or by divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. And he started comparing these things, and the odds when he first showed us. Now, I suck at math. So for me, I was like, that sounds really important, but I don't know how to put that together because that's not my gift. And it turns out that he's really discovered something very, very, very powerful. And so what this movie's about is our bodies are mostly water. Our planet is mostly water. And none of it is clean and vibrating with the proper frequencies. And that's one of the reasons that the planet and all of us are not in our optimal state. And so the movie is really about examining the movement of transhumanism. And it's asking a question, and that is, humanity is at a crossroads right now. And this is the first time that we've ever had to face the choice of augmenting ourselves with technology or rediscovering the magnificence of nature, that secrets have been kept from us and we've never fully explored or optimized. And when you consider the fact that our whole entire universe, all life, is mathematic. There's codes in everything. And that even when you look at the frequencies, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, start thinking in terms of sound, frequency, and vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you go, well, it's interesting that, that music used to be tuned to frequencies such as 432 hertz. And then there's I didn't even know this, an overarching body of standardization that I think it was early 1900s that came out to say, no, let's all unify our music. And this is the frequency that we need to tune it to. And it turns out, and we've learned through generations, that oddly, the numbers they retuned music to are frequencies that are chaotic, that cause disharmony. And when you understand that planet Earth itself resonates at a frequency that's called the Schumann resonance, and it's a very certain number, and that if our bodies are, it's like if harmonies, if we want to sing a song right now, if you're off, out of pitch, it's going to sound bad, because the resonance of our voices it becomes dissonant instead of harmonious. And it's the same way with the food we eat, the vibration of the food we eat, the water we drink, and the vibration of the planet that we live on. And if our body's tuned to something different from nature, then we're never going to be part of nature. And that's the plan, because it is a war against nature that we're in right now. Our bodies are so brilliant and so resilient that whether you believe in God or not, if you're not absolutely mystified by the creation of life, then you're not paying attention. And it's amazing that, I'll give you an example. If you crack open a carrot and you look at the inner workings of a carrot, it actually looks like the iris of an eye, and it's good for your eyes. You crack open a walnut, it looks like a mini brain with left and right hemisphere, and it's good for your brain. You open a avocado, it's the shape of a womb with a seed inside, and it's good for the cervix. Bell pepper, all the 4 chambers in the shape of a heart, good for the heart. And you go, what is this? How could this be a coincidence?
Yeah.
It's almost as if some divine source said, children, there will come a day when you're going to lose your way. And I'm going to make these foods look like the organ that they're meant for in primary colors like friggin' Legos, so you can put them back into your lives. And instead, everything's synthetic, everything's digital, everything is other than nature. And so there's a real calling, and through this movie, I'm very excited about it, because it's a real calling just to say, listen, I love technology. I mean, my whole life is technology. I think AI right now, as from a filmmaker, is completely reinvigorated my love for film. It is amazing what we can do with AI. We've never had the ability before. There's a really wonderful upside to it. But this movie is saying, are we going to do what we have done with everything that we've invented? Use it in such a greedy way that it ultimately ends up using us. I mean, our belongings own us now. We don't own them. We're in debt to our belongings. We don't own the homes. The banks own our homes. And so it's a real, I feel like it's a really important movie for an important moment of us being at the crossroads to say, how are we going to handle this? Because we can use it as a tool, or we can allow it to become a weapon, and that's what we've always done. But this is a weapon that, if we let it get out of control, it can end us. And we really need to think very hard about it. And we also need to understand that there's nothing that man or even AI can create that will surpass the brilliance and resilience of nature. It can't. And I believe that that's one of the issues for these people that want to control everything, is they've already created a system that, AI is light years beyond our minds. It can write a book in 3 minutes. I can't. I don't know about you. Mm. It surpassed our ability to think already. But the problem is the human soul, this thing we call spirit, this thing we call ether, this thing we call soul. You can't measure it. You can't read it. You can't manipulate it. It is the thing. And the technologists, the technocrats have discovered that and went, oh shit. We're trying to control these people, but they keep bouncing back because they have this thing called spirit or soul. And unless we deaden or kill that, they're always going to prevail. Rudolf Steiner said 100 years ago, there will come a day when greedy doctors will be entrusted the task of creating a vaccine that will be administered as early as birth, and the sole purpose of that vaccine will be to deaden the human soul. 100 years ago, he said that. And so then you go, oh, geez, all these frequencies and technologies that are in the air, they all have a oppressive quality against our soul. And so it is like all the movies we've seen our whole childhood, our whole lives, that there is a battle to overtake the human soul. It is the opponent. How many frequencies are in this room, this studio right now?
Yeah.
unlimited, an infinite amount of frequencies in this room. We can tune our phones to it, our tuners or whatever. It's just floating in the air. It's swimming. We're swimming in a stew of frequencies. And unfortunately, most of them are not cohesive with our nature. And this is why there's such a mental health issue in the world. There's so much depression in the world. This is where they want us, right? Because once we lose that ability, the bees are all off course and dying.
Right.
The migration of the birds, the murmuration things are changing in our nature because of technology, because of the electrification of the planet,
Yep.
because of the radio technologies, because of the Wi-Fi technologies, because of the HARP signals that are being sent out into the world, all this stuff. It's a battle of the weaponry of this war is frequency. And so what do we do to combat that? What do we do? Well, in some countries they just started burning 5G towers, but short of a terrorist act like that will all land us in federal prison for a number of years, what do we do? Because I believe the human body is capable of adapting to anything. And so we have to overcome it by being more of what we truly are and not less of. And so that's an argument for stepping deeper into our nature, remembering who and what we are, returning to that, getting our hands back in the friggin' soil, growing our food again, eating real food, having real conversations, looking into the eyes again, making love again, instead of hookup culture and all the crap that we do that's so impermanent and so disastrous for us as a society. These are the things that are calling us back. Men are being called back to it's time for me to stand up for my nation. It's time for me to stand up for the children. And then there's women. There's a movement of women that are kind of going, I want to kind of come back into a traditional role. I want to be there for my children. I don't want to work 2 jobs anymore. I don't want to leave my children behind and leave them in daycare or with babysitters or with their devices, their computers all day. We have to get back to the things that worked for us. And it's a constant evaluation of what is natural and what is normal. And if anyone takes anything away from this podcast today, is that has become one of the most valuable explorations of my life, is to constantly ask myself, is that natural or is that normal? What that has done, I have an 11-year-old and a 13, just turned 14-year-old, 2 extraordinary young men. And one of the reasons that they have been raised so well is not just because they have 2 loving parents, but because from an early age we went, you know what? Because I challenge everything cognitively. I challenge everything. And our son was just entering his the terrible 2s, they call it. And we started to play the game. We went, oh, well, he is 2 years old. Here we go. I went, hold on a second. Is that natural or is that normal behavior? It's interesting. I said, sweetheart, let's try something new. Let's call them the terrific 2s and just see what happens. Let's just say 2 is when the most terrific stuff happens in the formative years of a child. Let's convince ourselves that and let's live into that and see what happens. We didn't experience terrible 2s. We saw moments when the child was rebelling or getting sassy or whatever, but what I learned from it is I went, oh, this isn't a terrible stage. This is a stage of independence, of sovereignty. This is about when the child realizes I'm actually not in my mom's womb anymore. I have an identity. I'm separate from, because I smell her, I feel her. I know that's the vibration of the person that gave me life, but I'm now fully independent. And so how do I prove that to myself? Well,
no.
Exactly. Exactly, right? So
Yeah.
you tell me not to do something and don't set the cup there. Boom. You said don't do it and I did it. So, I have will, my own will. I'm an independent person. And that education came from just simply asking at every turn, is this normal or natural? Do kids, now I have a kid, 14 years old, and I'll sit down and have these conversations with them. I say, son, so just know that everyone has told me, my friends who have had kids that are older, have all told me, oh, just wait until they get into their teens and Just wait till you're not their hero anymore. I've had fathers say that. Just wait till you're the jerk. Just wait till everything you do is wrong. Just wait till you're the ass. Just wait till you're the embarrassment. It's all coming, buddy. Just watch. Soak it up while you got it. And I went, I've seen that. There's evidence that that is a common pattern. But do I have to experience that? Because I have such great loving boys right now, I cannot. And so I sat down with my boys and I said, there's going to be, and we'd watch Netflix and we'd point things out and say, do you notice that all these shows, I show them old shows. I said, here's Married with Children, the buffoon of a dad with his hand down his pants. These shows have been setting up forever how the father, oh, shut up, Dad. At the table, Dad starts to say something, you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, they've been setting this up. And so they're conditioning you through everything you experience to eventually see Dad as passé. Thank you, you gave me a life, Dad, but now, look, I got my own thoughts and I don't need your advice. So now we don't take advice from the elders anymore. We don't have Dad to guide us anymore. And I said, do you want that? And my sons go, no. And I said, we have a choice because it's actually not natural, it's normal. And do we want to be normal people or natural people? My sons are like, natural. Awesome. So I challenge you to start pointing out to me when you see the way that all this media is conditioning you and your brother. And they would. They'd go, oh, sorry, Dad, I got to stop this movie. Click. Right there. That's what you always warned us about. So right there, the kid's rolling her eyes at the dad. That's, I feel it like the dad's stupid. I'm like, exactly, son. You're being conditioned to see dads as worthless because dads are a very important part of this experience.
I was going to ask you, what's the most important thing or some of the most important things you've taught your children that you would recommend?
Wow. It's been, oh man, I've had a very adventurous, wonderful life, and nothing compares to the adventure that I've been on since I've had children. And I just think, because I was kind of let loose as a kid, right? Single mom, and I just was like let loose, had to learn everything the hard way, got into trouble, stole, shoplifted, did all the stuff. And but being there with my kids, like I won't even travel without them anymore. When people call me, like we're going to Spain next month, and I'm like, you got to fly my whole family out. I don't want to be without them. It's just the way it is. Or I'll stay home. It's fine. I'm not looking for, I don't need publicity, and I'm not looking for anything else. But it's more valuable for me to stay in my kids' lives and to be with them. And so we have gone deep. We have a lot of conversations. We had one today, and almost every day that we'll have, and they love it, which is amazing. And that's one thing I really pray it never changes. Because my 14-year-old son will go, Dad, can I talk with you? Yeah, okay. So I'm running into this little challenge with my friend circle, and this thing is coming up and whatever. What advice would you give me? How should I respond to that? Because I'm kind of lost. And I never give them the answer. I help guide them to find their answer. I go, well, what do you think that's coming from? And so one of the things, to answer your question directly, that I remember going, wow, this is really working, was, I prepared my kids at a very early age. I actually set them down. I remember my wife, Nadia, at one point going, are you sure it's okay to tell them all that? And I said, I don't know. We'll find out. But I sat down and I said, yeah. I'm going to tell you some names that you're going to be called. It's inevitable. And I went through the list of bad names that they're going to be called. It kind of starts with, you're gay. And then it goes there and a little deeper, a little more. It's all going to happen. You're going to run into kids that are going to bully you. And I taught them, I said, hurt people, only hurt people, that old cliche. And I told them, like, how to receive that. I said, the mistake would be if you took it personally and believed them, because that person's actually hurting, or they wouldn't want to hurt you. That's just the way it is. And the first time my youngest got bullied, he was like at trampoline park. It's trampoline park. Every time the kids go, something happens. I don't know what's going on there. And I go to pick him up. Dad, I got to tell you what happened. This kid, and he got really bullied. He told me what the kid said, and I was like, whoa. And I said, how'd that make you feel, bud? He said, very sad. He said, yeah, why? Because I was just wondering what happened to that poor kid, that he'd be so angry. I said, oh, you're not sad because it hurt you? He goes, oh no, it's not me. It's him, I just really feel sad that like maybe his dad beat him, or he was making up all these scenarios,
Yeah.
like trying to figure out why this kid is so angry. And I said, good job, man. I mean, imagine that even as adults, being able to just like not take the weight of somebody else's aggression. And so little things like that have really proven, teaching them how to become, well, that was a whole training we called bully proof. I'm going to teach you guys how to become bully proof. And then really teaching them how to pay attention. My background is really ontological research. I've been since a very young age studying the behavior of humans, like what makes us do what we do. And so I've been passing that on to the kids and saying, look a little deeper, because it's too easy for us just to have an experience and then judge that person. They're a jerk, they're whatever. But look a little deeper and try to analyze the situation and find out. I said, maybe you actually are doing something. And so that there's a growth. Instead of just projecting on that person that they're being mean to you, maybe they're mean for a reason. Maybe they're angry because you've actually done something. And so first look, am I accountable? Am I being accountable for my behavior? And then if you really get like, yeah, actually, no, I didn't do anything to deserve this. And so now look deeper. And then once you can kind of read where you think that person might be, I challenge you to find a way to actually befriend that person who you see as an enemy right now. Like help them, because I think they need help. And this is a weird way of crying out, but this is kind of a way when people aren't emotionally literate, sometimes they'll just lash out at people because they're really crying out, like, is somebody going to step in and help me? I keep causing a fit, hoping that somebody comes in and says, do you need help? And I said, and obviously not enough people have asked that kid if he needs help. And so my kids will start doing that. They'll say, I know that you don't like me or that you think I'm dumb or whatever like that, but, and I always tell them, give them a compliment. Find something good that they do and see what happens with that. And I'll say, but I just want to let you know that I think you're a really great baseball player. And the kids go, I just insulted you. Oh, I know. But you're a great pitcher. What? Yeah, you're awesome. I learn a lot from you. I'm really inspired. I hope I can become as good as you. Oh, well, I'm sorry for what I said to you. It's like that.
That's amazing. What you just hit on was something that just kind of occurred to me, is how do we start having better conversations with people?
Yeah.
Find a way to say something good. We're so up there in each other's stuff right now, and people are on social media especially. Man, they're on both sides of this. They're just so I'm right about this or whatever, It's a very ineffective way to communicate. It drives people away.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this playing out just as we're talking. I'm seeing these labels. On the one hand, there's the MAGA. They're branding things under this thing that are pretty extreme sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing on the other side, Occupy Democrats.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I know
dude,
it very well.
Oh, it's terrible, right? Even if, and occasionally they get something right, it's so heavy-handed. And I'm going, God, I just want to tell these people without being a jackass, just saying, God, if you could just change this attribution thing here, because it just doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. Extreme things get posted. So some decent stuff in there, but some of the stuff in there starts getting to be like, what the heaving is this?
Well, let's dig into that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's dig into that. Yeah, this is a great subject. I'm really glad you brought this up, because so I suddenly found myself in this position where a lot of my friends are now running big, important agencies. RFK is a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard. I know Kash Patel, and a lot of the Dr. Malone, who's now been hired, John Knox, who works under RFK. I mean, just go down a whole list of all these people that are some of the most incredible people that I've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all hired to be part of this administration. And I've never registered as a Republican. I didn't even vote this last time around. But I did media supporting all the people that I knew were good people. I did media for Bobby. I did media for Tulsi. I did media for all of them to help them. Through the Maha organization right. I was working for them and creating all these short videos to help tell stories. And and actually creating some opposition videos, to really expose some of the stuff that Kamala has done in her past, which kind of, there's one video that we did called Dear Kamala, that went very viral, hundreds of millions of views, and people were shocked to see that her actually on video saying some of the stuff that she said. And there are things that are happening right now that keep me up at night. There are some moves that Trump is making that I think are horrific, and dangerous and scary. And then there are a bunch of moves that appear to be bad. And I will tell you this. I just released this actually on Facebook today, letting people know something that I've learned since I've become an investigative filmmaker. That there's a game that has to be played that somehow requires people to say and do things publicly that is absolutely the opposite of what they think and how they feel and what they support. And I'll tell you the thing that informed me so that I can look at this, because it's all really about what filter do we experience life through. And we have tons of filters that we experience life through. If we are a woman who's had abusive men, then we experience men through the filter. And then if we're a guy who's had bad experience with women, we experience all women through that filter. The idea is to keep those filters off so we can experience things for what they really are, and we're not tinting them. And after I had my experience in 2001 and I left Hollywood, I put everything in storage. I was actually hired to write the sequel to the movie Easy Rider.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so the guy who owned the rights had a property in Napa Valley, 30 some acres, private vineyard, private lake, beautiful property. And he said, hey, he knew what I was going through. And he said, come and live in my guest house as long as you want. I loved his kids loved me. And he said, you're welcome here as long as you want. Really good guy. His name is Tony. And we still keep in touch today. And one day, Tony and I were sitting on his back porch. We were having a glass of wine, and the sun was setting, and it's just beautiful, just vineyard and a private lake. And I just said, Tony, man, I said, you have a beautiful wife, beautiful kids. I said, but I got to ask you something. I said, my friends who have come here to visit, they often ask me, what does this guy do? And I said, I don't know what to tell them. What do you do? Besides, I know you run Miracle Entertainment, which is the company who bought bought the rights to the script that I'm writing. But you haven't made money on that yet. This didn't come from that. That's a new endeavor for you. So what do you do? And he said, oh, I'm an interim CEO. And I went, well, I know what an interim CEO means. That just means a CEO that steps in for a period of time until you hire the real CEO. That's a career? Oh yeah. So explain that one to me. I said, okay. He said, so right now I'm the interim CEO of a major stem cell company, and it's sinking. It's going to be dead in a month or two. So they call me in. He goes, you love the movie Pulp Fiction? He goes, I'm the fixer. I'm the wolf. And I come in and I trim all the fat, which means firing a lot of people. I come in and I say, where's the company making money, and what are our losses, and what department are they coming from? HR, gone. Woman with 8 kids on your own, gone. He goes, you'd be terrible at this. You have too big of a heart. He goes, and I can't have a heart when I do this. And I said, but you're such a good guy, Tony. He goes, well, all right. He goes, I have a heart. He goes, but I can do it because I know the fate of this company. They're all going to lose their jobs in 3 months. And so if I can save it for 1,000 of them and fire 1,000 of them, that's better than all of them losing their jobs. Don't you agree? And I said, yeah, I guess so. He said, so I come in, he goes, but the first thing I have to do is find out who controls 51% of the board. Who has the majority of control? Because the board is the only entity that can fire me. And so I have to go in. And he goes, I know how much you hate phoniness. This is why I tell you would not be good at this job. I have to be very phony. So what do you mean? He goes, I have to kiss their asses. I get them laid. I take them to strip joints. I get them cocaine if they want cocaine. Whatever I have to do to get on the good side of this board. Because the moment they go, okay, we like this guy, then I can get stuff done. but I have to constantly remind them I'm on their side. And he actually told me, he goes, and his marriage ended like a year later. He said, which even means sometimes I have to do something in front of them, like maybe I'm with another woman. I'm like, oh, I wish you would have told me that. But he said that way, he goes, they know that I'm actually committing dirt in front of them. They have dirt on me because they know I'm a married man. So now they feel safe to be as dirty as they want to be. It's like, what a weird game. Like, this is what you do? He said, yeah. He goes, but I come in, I save the company, I take a piece of equity, and I move. That's where I get my money. So I have equity in all these major corporations because I came in and helped save them. I went, that is it. I didn't know that position even existed. Mm-hmm. And you're right, I would suck at it, but obviously you're doing very well. And I think about this when I see a lot of behavior of certain people that are elected officials today. Because I know some of their family, and I know what their family tells me who they really are. And then they come out and say something that's such an antithesis of what their daughter just told me, their ex-wife just told me, their son told me. I'm just go, that is weird. And I think about my friend Tony, and I think, yeah, our country is completely occupied. It is owned and controlled. And if you're going to do anything in America, you better know who owns and controls it, and you better give them what they want, or you're not going to get anything done. And so there is a game that's being played. Now, is that the answer to everything? No. Does greed get involved? And is it possible that Trump has dirt on him and he has to? Absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. And is it a game? I have something I wrote up about Tulsi that I'm going to, because every now and then she says something that makes people go, oh my God, Tulsi's turning. Tulsi will never turn. I know her very well. That woman she will die before she would ever, ever be bought out. I know her whole family. We stayed in Airbnbs and traveled in SUVs together. I got to know I'm good buddies with her husband, her sister, all of them. They are such solid, salt of the earth people. And there's nothing that can corrupt that woman. But if she appears that way, it's because she has to play a game. And I know Bobby.
Yep.
And Bobby's a great man. A very, very good man with a big heart. Is he compromised? They all might be. His weakness was drugs and women for a long time. And if he did something back in the days when that was a problem for him, it's possible. Because the blackmail game, you know what honeypot is?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the other reason that I don't travel without my wife. Because I know that all they do is they find out, you go on social media and you go, hey, I'm going to be doing an event at the ballroom of the Hyatt in Mexico City or whatever. And they go, okay, let's send a beautiful Mexican girl over there. And just so happens she finds you after the event and goes, you want to have dinner? I love your work. I love it. That's how Project Veritas does everything, right? Project Veritas goes on Tinder and finds these people. And then they go out on a date, have a couple of drinks, and they tell them all their secrets on hidden camera. Yeah, those are honeypots.
Yeah.
Right? And so we all know that, that's how they take down truth tellers. I don't fool around. I'm a very loyal man, and so, but I'm like, hey, look, if my wife's with me, she's always my alibi. They're never going to be able to do that because all they have to say, they know where all the speakers are staying in the same hotel. So all it takes is some woman to get paid $100,000 to say, oh yeah, I slept with him that night. He took me home, back to the hall. Oh yeah, he was in room 210 at the Hyatt, whatever. Yeah. And then they go, were you in room 210? I was. How'd she know that? It's not hard to find out.
Yeah.
You call the front desk and you go, hey, I know he's staying here in this hotel. I have a friend. I forgot his room number. And sometimes the stupid people at the front desk go, oh, it's 210. And then now I got the story. Now he's got to prove that he wasn't with me. And that it never this just happened to my good buddy Del Bigtree. And thankfully, he had an alibi. The whole story came out when he became the CEO of Maha, that he was with an underage girl at Mar-a-Lago. And he went, oh, you got to be kidding me. Del's a very loyal husband. You got to be kidding me. It just so happens he was on stage in another state when they said it happened. So he had a Loctite.
Wow.
So that went away fast because it's like, I'm on the flyer, I'm there. 500 people saw me speaking. Unless that's my clone, I couldn't have been at Mar-a-Lago, could I? Oh, shoot, they blew it. So this stuff happens all the time. And so, we have to keep that in mind, because of what I see people do is they don't know the game. And it's not like there are good politicians sometimes that come out and do something. I know, and it's starting to come out now, I know that someone like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, it had to just eat them up inside to come out and say, there's nothing in the Epstein files.
Right.
Those are real strong patriots. But you know they had to get together and go, look, there's a narrative we have to follow right now. And you never know when they're doing it also because they want something released. And I've even heard Trump say this a couple of times. During his first term, a meme used to go around. I thought it was a very mean meme, but it used to say, I can't wait for the day that Trump endorses oxygen so the liberals will stop breathing it. And what they were basically saying is everything he's for, they're against.
Right.
So if he comes out and says, I love Mueller, suddenly people would go, well, then I hate him. You know, I love Hillary. You know, he goes, I'm not going to prosecute Hillary. No, you should. Everything is the opposite, right? So there is a little bit of a game even there that he has to play sometimes to say the opposite of what he feels. I thought he was playing, but you never know with that guy. He's such a loose cannon. He's got a massive ego. You know, I know one thing is for real. I thought he was playing that game when it came to Operation Warp Speed. And then I got a call about 2.5 years ago from a good friend who's good friends with Don Jr. And he said, would you meet with Don Jr.? And I said, yeah, why? He said he's trying desperately to wake up his dad so he can stop saying that Operation Warp Speed was a miracle. And I never ended up meeting with Don Jr., but I said, yeah, I'd be happy to. He goes, okay, I'll let him know because he's trying so hard. I said, you mean he really believes that? I thought maybe he was trying to turn people against the vaccine rollout by saying they're wonderful so that everyone would say, no, they're not. They kill people, right? Because there's a little game that has to be played there sometimes. And we have no idea the level of strategy. These are military level strategies. If you read The Art of War by Sun Tzu and you understand that the premise of that entire war philosophy is to defeat the enemy without fighting, then you can start to look and then read Art of the Deal and you can understand a little bit more that there are negotiation tactics that are being used now from the Oval Office, from that book. And if you understand it and study it, you go, I don't know, it looks bad. But this may be a strategic psychological operation to do the opposite of what he's saying right now. You never know what's going on and what level they need to play. But if you understand, which I just got clear on in the last couple of years, the true power forces that have the stranglehold on America, once you understand that, some of the rhetoric starts to make sense. But they can't come out and go wink, wink, public. You know, I don't really mean what I'm saying here. They have to be entirely convincing. Because if they're not, they end up like JFK. He came out hard and said, there's secret societies that run this nation. They call it the speech that got him killed.
Right.
You know, and he did a few other things that were kind of crossing that red line for the entities that really control this nation. And they took him out in a way that would be a message to the people that we will take him out, blow his head off in front of his wife in a convertible.
Downtown Dallas in broad daylight.
Downtown Dallas in broad daylight. We want this to be a warning to you all that you do not say that stuff out loud. So since 1962 or 3, is it?
11/22/1963.
That's right. And no one's had the courage to say out loud, no one in that position to say out loud what he was just starting to say out loud, very, very, very vocally. And so everyone is in control now, has learned that you can't do it that way. You got to do it covertly. You have to do it strategically. And it's going to require us to look really bad to our base sometimes. But I don't want to say that like I'm not in blind allegiance to anyone, because there's also stuff that I know from the inside that are just really bad moves that are being made that are hard to support at the same time. So I will put a cap on the story with this. Is Marla Maples, Trump's ex-wife, is one of our best friends. I've been friends with her. She and I hosted, we met in 2011 in Seattle Stadium. We hosted a 10-year anniversary of 9/11. And because I was there, called a victim or whatever of 9/11, whatever you want to call it, search and rescue. we co-hosted the show together, became fast friends, and stayed friends forever. And we go on vacation together all the time. She's one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet in your life. Very spiritual. I've never heard her even say the word damn. She's just a very pure, kind of hearted woman. When Trump won in 2016, I remember Marla telling me one time, she opened up to me and she was upset with him. And it was all because there was something going on with, he made a public statement about how many children he had, and he left out their daughter, Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
And that was crushing, as you can imagine, to Tiffany. I don't know if he just made a mistake or what, but I remember she was so upset with that. And so in my mind, she was the angry, bitter ex-wife. So when he won, I called her and I said, "Oh, Marla, what are we going to do?" She goes, "What, sweetheart?" And I said, "I mean, my God, he just won." And she goes, "Well, you think that's bad?" And I said, "Don't you? Why would you think that And I said, "I remember you telling me." She goes, "Oh, sweetheart." She goes, "That's been so cleared up. He made a huge error. He has made it up to Tiffany. That's his baby now. And he's treating her so well. And that all got cleared up. I'm sorry if I left an impression of you that he's not a good man." She goes, "He's actually one of the best fathers I've ever seen ever. His children love him." She goes, "Look how successful they are. They've never had drug issues. They've never had problems." And she said, "And I will tell you this, Mikki," she said, "I don't know what kind of a president he's going to make." She said, "But the thing that irritated me most when I was married to him is he was a broken record. All he talked about was China's going to take over, our country's going to go down, and these people are doing this. And if I ever have to step into my golden years and run for office, I will, but God, I don't want to." She goes, he was a broken record. That's what he used to say to me all the time. And I went, "Really?" So it kind of opened my heart to he really cares about the country. I thought he was doing this all for, she goes, "Oh no, he's really very America passionate." She goes, I don't know what kind of job he's going to do. I'm not going to, because I don't know. But she goes, that is something I know. I know from being with him for many years. I said, "Oh, wow, okay." But lately, it sure seems like there's some decisions being made that are bad and shocking. And I just hope that perhaps we discover in the coming months or years that there was a good reason for it.
Yeah.
Because if not, then our country's in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that about Tulsi, because I've always had a good feeling about her, and I've gotten just a good vibe from her, and I've been, and of course I know RFK, but not as well as you do.
Yeah.
But I knew him as an environmental lawyer for years. I mean, he did such good work.
River keepers.
I find it insulting that people will comment about him like, "Oh, his brain is eaten by a worm," or this kind of, just stupid stuff, and then the references to, the doing drugs, the heroin and stuff. I'm like, you know what? I respect somebody who's come back from addiction, from hitting the wall,
Sometimes even more.
Oh, I trust them
Sometimes
more.
even more.
Yeah, because they've been there. They've been through that. They
Yeah.
understand. Some of the best people in the world are people who have gone through those kinds of challenges.
Yeah.
If somebody's never had those kind of battles, you don't know what they're going to do.
You don't know. It reminds me, do you remember Debbie Ford, author Debbie Ford? She wrote a book called Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And she used to work at the Chopra Center, and her whole world was, I did a movie with her many years ago called The Shadow Effect. Her whole thing was based on Carl Jung's examination of the human, what he called the human shadow. And she was an expert in the human shadow. She could read anyone, and she could tell you, even if you were the most enlightened spiritual person ever, she'd just be like, "You're full of shit." She'd just peg somebody in a moment. And next thing you know, that guy'd be crying, "I am full of shit. Why did you see me? I'm trying to hide from everything, and I'm miserable." And it's like, okay, well, you have to be authentic, right? And so before we did this movie called, Shadow Effect, we had to do her shadow course. And during the shadow course, this is before I was married to Nadia. We were together 7 years before we got married. I had to there was a whole exercise where you beat a pillow and you're blindfolded on. And I let out the pain that I had felt for the man that I had been to women. And, growing up with a lot of opportunities, I took advantage of them. And I was in a band in the 80s, and women were just disposable. And it was just a thing of conquering and moving on to the next one. And when I finally had to deal with that, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath, there comes a time when if you behave that way, you're going to have to deal with it. And I dealt with it during this workshop of just really feeling the karma, feeling the heat and the weight of like, my mother had already passed at that time, and just like, God, I've not honored my mother at all. She was so strong about honoring women, and I've been a womanizer. And I'm in this new relationship right now, and I'm afraid of myself because, my wife is just one of the coolest people you'll ever meet. She's one of the most extraordinary humans, and my job is to interview extraordinary humans all over the world, and she's one of the most extraordinary humans. It's like she's Filipino from Fargo, North Dakota. I always say it must be your recipe because it's a very unique spice you have, and it's just she's just always happy, always patient, strong, not submissive, but and just incredible mother. And I can say anything to her. She never holds on to anything. In my first marriage, it was like I'd say something now, I'd be okay, and then 6 months later, it'd come out, like, oh boy. And so I was like, I don't want to hurt her. I have so much respect for her. I don't trust myself. I've just failed at every relationship I've been in. And so I'm like, I got to get this, I let this stuff out. And part of it was because I was always told who my father was. And so, it was an accidental birth, and my father got my mother pregnant and left. He'd come in and try to see me every year or 2 or 3, and it was always awkward. We're great friends now. He's actually in hospice care now. He got 3 vaccines and has had 3 heart attacks.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. It's a whole other story. But because the stories that I was told forever, my grandmother would say, don't be like your father. He was a womanizer and a deadbeat dad and all these things. My mom would say things kind of like that too, but much softer. She would, on one hand, say, oh, he's great. He's a wonderful man, and I just wish he was in your life more. And then every now and then she'd be like, don't be like your dad. And so this was ingrained in me. And so there's like, they say, what you resist persists. And I was just haunted by this thing of like, I'd meet a girl that's really nice and lovely and whatever. And I would tell her I love her, and I meant it in the moment, but then it's like, well, but I love that one more. And I'm gone. And it's just a trail of wounded women. So I'm finally doing this workshop, and I'm dealing with this. Like, I got to get this out. I can't do this again. And if I do it to this one, because God, she's just so kind. I'm going to hate myself if I do it to this one. I'm never going to forgive myself. I can feel it. And so I end up just letting this stuff out in this workshop. And Debbie Ford, we're in the car like the next day, and we're driving, nodding her in the back seat, and Debbie's driving, and someone else in the passenger seat, and she's communicating to the rearview mirror. And she says, Nadi, I want you to know you have one of the most honest men you'll ever meet on this planet. I'm thinking, what? Didn't she hear what? She said, any man who's done what he's done and has been so forthcoming to let it out emotionally as deeply as he did means he's now on the other side of the spectrum. You have one of the most honest men that you'll ever find. Because he's going to now, he's had the experience of the pain he's caused others and himself. He'll never go back. And I remember just going, oh God, thank you. Because I was afraid but you're right. Like, I can't go back. The cost is too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
And so you've asked earlier what I've told my kids, and I've shared this stuff with my kids. I would say, I traded 2 hours of sex for 20 years of pain. You think that was a good trade, boys?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. And I said, that's why you think with this head.
Yeah.
And you think with this heart.
Yeah.
And you think it's not just about what you want. You're not just taking from people. What are you giving? Because you matter. And I didn't know I mattered enough. When you don't think you matter, you can hurt other people very easily. I now am responsible for who I am and understand I carry a lot of power to hurt people. And so I'm going to wield that power with honor, dignity, and respect. And that's what I teach my sons. And when they slip up, which we all do, my oldest son he's exaggerated a couple things, but he's never lied. He's just such an honest kid. My youngest one has. It's about, like 3 or 4 times when it's always at night. It's like 11:30, 12, knock on the door. Yeah? Can I come in? Yeah, come on in. I can't sleep. Why? What's going on? I lied. He can't go to sleep. I said, God, that's beautiful, buddy. You have such a moral compass that your body won't let you sleep until you clean this up. What did you lie about? Sometimes it's just, you asked who ate the ice cream, and I said, I don't know. I was me. It's okay.
That's a sweet story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great. But the thing that matters to me is that you have the ability to feel in your body when you cross your own framework of morality. And that's going to guide you through life, because life, the result of your life, is determined by every choice you make. And you're showing your dad that you're going to make good choices. And above all, you're going to be an honest man. And if that's all you are on this planet, it's just an honest man, you're already so far ahead of your generation, because the internet is teaching everyone to be deceptive. And all women, they want honesty. And they're not getting it from the men out there. They're getting deceivers, hustlers. And the women are learning how to do it now too.
Yeah.
And I said, so your generation, you can be one of the ones to balance that out. And so I've laid this on my kids, and I thought, is this too heavy to lay on kids? No.
No, it's not.
My son, who just turned 14, he made his first movie about helping his generation break screen addictions. It went so viral, he got invited to do a TED Talk. He did his first TED Talk. It's about to come out. I mean, he's crushing it. He just turned 14, and he's already this little leader. And I explained to them one day, I said, I used to consider myself a Buddhist. And I went and I did a film project with the Dalai Lama, spent 10 days with the Dalai Lama. I was really into Buddhism because I thought it's so peaceful. It's like so gentle. And the monks were just the sweetest people you ever meet. And I got very interested in the whole golden child story. And I thought, is this really a chosen golden child? Or do they grow up to be spectacular because their whole life they're told they're the golden child? And I remembered a study that was done where they went into a school and they told the teachers, they brought new kids into the school, and they said, we're bringing you a group of highly gifted kids, highly gifted. And they're so gifted that some of them have maybe a little behavioral issues or whatever, but it's just because they're so off the chart smart. And by the end of the year, these kids were just soaring. And then they broke it to the teachers. They said these were kids that were actually failing. They weren't the top grade earners. What? So why did they become the top grade earners? Because you believed as the teacher that they were extraordinary. And so I never forgot that, because I've told my kids, you are a golden child and you are here to do great things. You're not here to just go get a 9-to-5 job. You're here to do great things. You're a leader. And I've convinced them of this. I've raised them like they're the golden child. And as a result of that, it's possible. I remember one of the things, quick story that is so worth repeating, is Babe Ruth held a home run record for decades, and it was considered unbeatable. Everyone in baseball said it's just unbeatable. The man's a phenomenon. Can't beat Babe Ruth. First time someone beat it, after that, everyone beat it. Because that one person who went, I'm going to challenge that, opened up what's called possibility
Uh-huh.
for so everyone was told and they're convinced you can't beat it. So they literally limited themselves from having the ability to beat it.
Same thing happened with the 4-minute mile.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exact same story. So that's important for us to understand how we work cognitively. And that if we keep telling ourselves that we're bad, when Debbie Ford gave me that gift and said, you're with the most honest guy you're ever going to meet, it shifted my perception of I'm afraid of me because I do things that I don't think are good, to, oh shit, like I did all that so I could be now on the other side of the spectrum. And now there are times when I probably should tell a little bit of a white lie for safety, and I just can't. And I get in trouble sometimes.
Well, tell me why. Okay, that's a little off topic, but Dalai Lama, what was with the Dalai Lama shilling for Pfizer?
Well,
Mikki, come on.
okay.
I like these get me when I get the people that are supposed to be very, very spiritually aware and have this other sense of responsibility, and I'll admit that could be construed in a million different ways. But what was that about?
Well, the first thing that kind of burst my bubble with the Dalai Lama, and look, this is me being judgmental, and it's their tradition, was we were invited into his chambers because I was looking for a quiet place. And we were in India, where they're in exile, and there were monks from all over the world there to do something that has never been done before, and it was called the Buddha Maitreya celebration, initiation. And so it was a very important time for everyone in the world of Buddhism. And I needed to find a quiet place that we could interview some of the master monks. And so they took us in the Dalai Lama's chamber. And we walked by a toilet with a seat up, and there was yellow urine in it. And I go to flush it, and they go, no. Sorry, they go. His disciples are going to come in and drink that.
Oh.
And I said, I'm sorry, what? What? Oh yeah. They consider it to be like the nectar of the. Okay. I said they're going to drink his urine. Okay, weird. And that was the first time I said, okay, not perfect. Let me let me start looking at this critically. And I realized that, that he's an imperfect man. And there are some things that he's done that are questionable. There's a video of him telling a young boy, he stuck out his tongue and said, suck on my tongue, right? And you go, that's weird. Yeah. And could it just be that they're so innocent? It could be that they're just so innocent that because they feel that way sometimes, like they have a heart of a child. And is it just that was a playful thing that maybe, or is there other things going on? And there's a multitude of potential. Is it that some of the formulas within some of the shots have nanotechnologies that actually are, to some degree, that make the person controllable somehow? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of theories about that. Right. And there's some of the people who are doing the research on it are not conspiracy theorists. These are top scientists.
Right. I've seen some of the blood work and stuff.
They're saying, oh yeah, nanoparticles can, and then if you have towers that could, if you put it into your blood, and then there's a frequency that could actually activate something. It's not beyond the realm of possibility.
I've seen some interesting things there. I don't know enough about it to say one way or the other.
I don't either, but at this point, I think everything's on the table to look at it as potentially real. And you look at that, and then you go back into all the mind control programs. You got to, everyone, please, this is old news, but, if you don't understand what Operation Mockingbird was, it's so funny because I just put out a post saying, did Operation Mockingbird, basically Operation Mockingbird was a CIA program where they were trying to discover how to control the human mind. Oh, I'm sorry, MK Ultra. Yeah. Operation Mockingbird was the press. This all came together, which is why it's easy to confuse, when Frank Church created the Church Committee in 1975 and brought them all into court under oath and learned that they had thousands of journalists under contract with the CIA. They learned that the CIA has a heart attack gun, literally a gun that goes and it gives you a heart attack. And this is 1975. So what do they have today? So when you hear all these people, oh, he had a heart attack, suddenly had a drop dead or whatever, it's like they have the ability to knock on your door and open your door and then next thing you know, you're dead. You're having a heart attack and there's no proof that it came from any exterior forces. And so when you look at this, I put out a post and I said, is it possible? Because what they said was they weren't able to really achieve their goals to control the human mind. And so they shut everything down in 1975. And my post was saying, did they shut it down or did they implement it? Is it in our TVs? Is it in our computer screens? Is it in our phones? Is it in our music? I know it is. But sometimes I pose things as a question because I want people to think, right? And so it was 7 days later at the max that Tulsi Gabbard comes out with, we've just discovered that Operation Mockingbird is still in effect. It's like, well, no, duh, we know that, but it's great now that she's doing that investigation. Yeah. And so when you understand that they actually have the ability, because they'll show you, if you look at the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, it's all about the program. And they have, if you see online, look up robo-dogs, remote-controlled dogs. They've already implemented things within the brains of dogs where they are making the dogs move at their command. External, no wires connected. Interesting. So some of these mass shooters, some of these terrorists, some of the people who just suddenly snap, right. A lot of people are like, are they part of the CIA programs? Are they being controlled? So when you ask the question about the Dalai Lama, there's a multitude of possibilities. But when somebody has influence at his level, those are the targets. And so is it possible that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 2 years ago, or whatever, that they said he's influencing a lot of people? Let's control him in some way.
Well, that's interesting. The MK Ultra programs, people now know about that to some degree. That's, commonly people think about that as hypnosis, LSD, psychological torture things to split the personality and those kinds of things. But people don't realize how long that was going on and how effective various programming techniques are. And they're in all sorts of things. They're in cults and religions and just all movements and things like that. Very, very effective. But how widespread they were. Yeah. MK Ultra programs were in at least 80, universities and clinics around the country, in this country alone. Yeah. And there were overseas things as well. That's just 80 that we know. And they were in prisons. They were in military. Yeah. And it was like, this was ongoing, for a long, long time. There's touches of MK Ultra in many of the famous, violent episodes. So we know we're living in times where it appear to be right now a pretty epic time where it seems like, gosh, maybe we're doomed. Or maybe we're doomed unless we do certain things. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is an ancient conundrum. Is everything going to turn out okay no matter what we do? Or does it really matter to some degree what we do and what intention we put into it? Does it matter? So with that in mind.
Well, so I'll tell you what keeps me optimistic. And I would say it's even beyond optimistic, because sometimes people will come up to me and they'll say, hey, thank you for what you do. Your movies really give me hope. And I always, on purpose, I shock them and I go, oh, God, I'm so sorry. And they go, what? No, I said, your movie give me hope. I say, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. Why are you saying you're sorry? I said, because hope means things might work out. I want to give you certainty. So I failed. I'll try harder next time. And they usually laugh and they notice I'm being serious. I want to give you certainty. And how can you give people certainty in a time of such uncertainty? The way I derive that is kind of circling back to what we talked about at the beginning of this podcast with the work of Joseph Campbell. Because none of Joseph Campbell's work was his theory. He was just sharing what he learned from spending his whole life with different cultures and asking them, like, tell me the stories that you share. What are your stories? And then he mapped the stories out and started realizing, God, there's a commonality in all these stories. It's interesting that no matter how the communities are separated, if one's in the heart of a jungle that's never seen a TV or doesn't even know a TV exists, to one that's in the middle of New York City, we still tell pretty much the same story. Why is that? And then if you map out the story, you understand that reluctant hero slays the dragon in the end. That's the way it unfolds. Why is it that before any kind of technology, communication even existed, before there was even moving pictures, before any of that, why, when it was just campfires and cave walls and etchings, and why were there always these stories about the people, the little people? Sometimes it would show the little people and the big creatures, and it would somehow find a way to take down, you see on the cave etchings, the creature ends up down. How did the little person defeat the big monster? How did that happen? And why is it almost every story of creation has that kind of conclusion? We need to start taking a look at that more. And because I've spent 30 years or more studying that work, it has me realize it's because it's our story. Different names, different territories, different styles of storytelling. But very few stories are ever, we get involved in the plight of this hero, and then at the end, he's killed. He's gone. Everything failed. No one wants to watch that story. That story doesn't do anything for us. People have tried to make that story, but it doesn't satisfy an audience, because not just because it's depressing, but because it defeats the purpose of why we're watching a movie about a story in the first place. We're watching it to remind ourselves. We make movies and tell stories to remind ourselves so that we never forget that is our human journey. That is our hero's journey. And so when you consider that what it is that reluctant hero who goes out to find the hero. Let me speak in terms of one of the clearest hero, Matrix, all of them, Star Wars, those are all hero journey stories. But one that I love because it's so obvious is the Karate Kid, the original Karate Kid. So you have this kid who's getting bullied, and he's had enough. So he goes and he finds the karate master, and he says, teach me. I need to learn how to fight because I'm tired. I'm tired of dealing with this bully, and I need revenge. And the teacher says, okay, wax the car. What? Wax the car. Oh, okay. I'm done waxing the car. Now teach me how to fight. Okay. Polish the floor. Polish the floor. Polish the floor. What does this have to do? Polish the floor. Okay. Polish the floor. The floor is polished. Master, now teach me to fight. Paint the fence. Paint. I'm getting sick of this. Like, now I see what's going on. You're using me. You think I'm some dumb kid. I'm going to come do all your labor for you. You're not a master. Why does everyone speak about you like you're a master? Paint the fence. I'm going to paint the damn fence, and you're going to teach me karate. Paints the fence. Now go home. What? Like, what is going on here? Like, you crazy old man, right? All those scenes. And not until the bully was confronted, the hero was confronted, the Karate Kid was confronted by the bully the next time. And this time when the bully went to strike him, the muscle memory of all the labor he had been doing taught him how to fight, block, strike, kick. He didn't know that he was learning karate. He thought he was being used by some crazy old man. And so here we are on our own hero's journey, dealing with waxing the car and painting the fence and scrubbing the floor every single day like slaves. But this looks like bad news, more terror, more wars, more lies, more mass shootings. That's the training that's happening for us right now. That's the wax the floor. It's preparing us to be the hero.
I like that.
And so I believe, and I mentioned that cliche story earlier of that moment when the hero gets beat to the ground and we all think, oh, she died, he died. And then there's the twitching and the fluttering of the eyes and the whole thing. We're about to hit that part of the story. So the dragon is going to take us down. And there's a lot of people that are already feeling defeated. They're already on the ground. Their eyes haven't begun to flutter yet. They feel dead. I'm done. I have no trust left in me. I have no passion left in me. I have no love left in me. I hate this world. I hate this country. I hate people. That's the death. That's the supposed victory in the name of the dragon. But what's about to happen is the common, everyday, reluctant hero is about to step up and say, oh no. And it's already happened. It's like popcorn. It's already happening all around the world where they go, now you mess with my children. Now you just killed my father. Now you just killed my sister. Now you just took my freedom away. Now you're going after free speech. Now you're going to... These are all the trials and tribulations of the reluctant hero being put through the test to earn the power to remember who and what they are. That society has convinced them they're not the one. And so what does Neo learn? You're the one. It's you. Okay, no, not me. It's you. You are the one, Neo. These are the stories. The force is within. Jedi. It's in you. And so when we're in this place that appears to be topsy-turvy, confusing, chaotic, depressing, and it's all of those things by design. And it's a wonderful moment to be alive because we've lost trust in the hero coming to save us. All the Trump supporters are going, I don't know anymore. I'm losing hope.
Right.
Bobby, he's doing good things, but he's not the hero that I thought he was going to be. No, he can't be. There's no external hero coming to save us. It doesn't exist. It's never happened. It never will. Unless you believe in God and you have other stories of salvation and stuff like that. But here in the physical plane that we exist in right now, and speaking of that physical plane, there's this feeling of like, God, darkness is consuming us, and it is. But I relate to this in the way of, I work a lot with 3D art. And if you look at what they call 2D art, the old Looney Tunes cartoons, why do they look one-dimensional, two-dimensional, and they don't look like what AI is producing now? AI is producing animation that I can't tell. And I have a very trained eye. I see pixels. And I have to look. And sometimes my kids see it before me and they're like, no, Dad, that's AI. No, it's not. It can't be. It is. Wow. But what is the difference between the first world of animation and 3D world? What makes the difference really? Well, technology, of course, but there's one element that makes all the difference. Shadow. Shadow is what gives 3D. Shadow is what has the thing jump off the page. And they say that we live in third dimension reality right now. So the shadow is necessary. We're never going to get rid of shadow as long as we're in the form that we're in right now. So it's not about getting rid of the shadow. It's about when that shadow tries to obscure the entire image, which is life. What do? Most people make the mistake of trying to kill the shadow. That'll never work because you're actually becoming shadow as you try to kill shadow. So you're adding, that's what the shadow wants. Get angry, get depressed, get bitter, get all these things because now you're vibrating at the vibration of the shadow.
Yeah, you're feeding it.
So what do? You illuminate, you intensify your light. That's the way we fight this. That's the way we win. And that's all that happens, is that we just keep reminding the shadow that you will never obscure the whole image. You're there and we'll work with you because we need you. But you're a small part of what we do. We are the light, and you're the shadow that gives us the three-dimensional reality. So thank you. But don't ever think that your job is to take over the whole shadow, because we end in darkness, complete darkness. And so for me, it's not a kumbaya thing. It's a look the dragon straight in the eyes. Don't avoid any of it. And don't even think I can't be angry. That they call it spiritual bypass, right? Where everything's okay, No, get angry, but then transmute. Use the ancient art of alchemy that transforms base junk metal into gold. Transform whatever they throw at you to gold. It's actually not that difficult. You have to deal with it first, and you might want to respond to the situation and go, that really pisses me off that this person did this, or they did this, or they're, I was under deep investigation by the FBI. They tried so hard to lock me up, and it was a scary moment. And I got really down on the fact that I am now, just for simply telling the truth, I am now an enemy of my own state. It's a scary thing to experience that very few men will ever have to face. And I had to go in hiding for 2.5 months until I could prove my innocence. I made the mistake of being a journalist January 6th at the Capitol.
Oh.
Never went in, but the New York Times lied, said I did, and I said, show me the video. Most surveyed place on the earth, you're lying. And so I had to prove this, but I had to stay out of custody because I would never have gotten out. So I had to, in hiding with burner phones. My phones are left at home. My whole family's hopping around every 3 days to a new place.
Wow.
And there was a moment when I got angry. I did nothing wrong. I was there speaking on a health freedom stage. I wasn't even there for the Trump rally. And the whole thing went down. I'm like, hey, I'm a journalist. There's something going on. Let me go check it out. And I got on my cell phone and said, here's what's going on. And I made the mistake of saying, I'm watching them let people in and out. They're letting people in and out right there. As soon as 2 leave, 2 go in. And so this is weird. They're letting people in and out. They didn't want people to know that. And so they came after me. And I got angry for a moment. And I transmuted that anger into right action. I transmuted that anger into understanding. This is what I came here for. Again, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. So what am I going to learn from this situation? And now that I know deeper and deeper and deeper what these people are capable of, that the very forces that we think are there to protect us are not. It's a scary thought to think that. It was terrifying to think and to see a whole article. New York Times did their insurrection reel. And I have memes online calling me a domestic terrorist. And I'm like, I'm a father. I made a couple documentaries, and now I'm a domestic terrorist? And I have people with a lot of power trying to put me in federal prison for doing nothing? Like, that's scary to know. I live in a country capable of doing that. But you have to take those moments and go, why is it happening for me? And am I going to stop because that's what they want? And if I stop, I lose.
Why is it happening for me?
Why is it happening for me?
That's a beautiful thought and important to remember. These are the kind of moments, ways to hold on to something that reminds you of you've got some power here and you can do some things with this. Let me ask a practical question about your son. The one who went and did the TED Talk about breaking phone addictions or
screen addictions.
Tell me how that. What was his method? His takeaway?
He's working on part 2 right now too. It's really quite amazing, and of course he was inspired because to keep my kids, and it's been a challenge. I mean, it's like screens are like heroin.
Yes.
And once you have a sample, you want more. And we made the mistake of letting our kids have a sample. And they came back, more, Dad, I need more. And my kids are very present in what we started to notice, because we were like, okay, look, we'll just do, we just kept chopping the time down. First it was like, half hour a day when you get home from school. Then it was like, only on 2 hours on Saturday, 2 hours on Sunday, only an hour on Saturday, an hour. It kept chopping it down because we're like, they're changing. you know, and it started with like us being in the car and, well, this is when I really got it. We're at like 4th of July celebration. We went to some Texas water slide retreat. And we'd been there for like an hour and a half. And my son comes and he goes, "Hey, Dad, I was just curious." He goes, "How long are we staying?" I went, "All weekend." "Why are you asking that? We just got here." Oh, it's cool. Never mind. I said, "No, why are you asking that?" He goes, "Well, I have an hour left in video games and I'm, just about to reach this new level and it's all I can think of." Now in the car on the way there, a few things happen too, where the whole family's laughing, but my son doesn't laugh. And I go, "What's going on back there?" "What?" I go, "Did you hear any of that?" He goes, "No. What happened?" I said, "Yeah, I noticed you weren't participating. Where's your head right now?" We call it, my son is a deep thinker. And I go, "Were you in your laboratory?" That means he's in his head. He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "What are you thinking about?" "Minecraft." I went, "Oh." I look at Nadia and she's like, "Uh-oh." And I go, so fast forward, we start going, we got to take this down. Then I start doing all this research and study. Like, what are the cognitive damages being done? What's going on in the world? Who's creating these games? And are there, I grew up with video games. It was fine. Asteroids and all these things. And it didn't, but what's changed within these games? And started learning that there's these class action lawsuits going on because kids are becoming addicted to these things, and all these neuroscientists talking about what it does. And so I sat down with my kids, and they were both at that age still sleeping together. And I put them in bed one night. I said, "I want to tell you a story." I said, "This story is called The Golden Wheat Field." And I teach them a lot through metaphors because for me, I'm a total visual, right? And so it's like when I'm taught through a visual, I remember it forever. I said, "So here's the golden wheat field." I said, "So I'm going to ask you a question. Ask both of you. I want you to first close your eyes and I want you to picture a golden wheat field. The sun's just going down and the wheat's just swaying and it's just beautiful, never been touched." I actually said a virgin wheat field. My little guy goes, "What's virgin?" And I said, "It means it's never been touched." And I said, "What would happen if you walked through to get to the other side?" And my oldest one goes, "The wheat would get trampled." And I said, "Yeah, but do you know that it would actually stand back up?" And he goes, "It does?" And I go, "Oh yeah, it's kind of cool. Kind of pulls itself back up and it'd be fine." I said, "But if you walked that trail multiple times a day for, let's say, a year, what would happen?" And he goes, "It wouldn't pop back up." I said, "Not only would it not pop back up, but the wheat would stop growing there." I said, "You know the hiking trail we go to?" "Yeah." And I said, "Do you realize that there's no maintenance company comes, like that's a permanent trail. The grass will never grow there again?" "Oh, really?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's just because the grass gives up. It just says every time I start to grow," this is not a good area to grow, obviously, because every time I start to grow, another sole of a shoe hits me and kills me. And so let's just stop growing here. Let's move over here. It becomes a permanent path." And I said, "And in your mind, you have something called neural pathways." And I explained to them what neural pathways are. And I said, repetition, repeated behavior carves a neural pathway. So if you do good things every day, you're actually carving a channel in your brain that then funnels your actions in a good direction. But these video games, I've been studying them, and they're actually developing neural pathways to create channels of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so when you get older, you will lose dominion on you. You know how Daddy's always telling you important every choice that you make determines how the quality of your life. You'll actually lose dominion over your choices. They go, "What's dominion?" I said, "It's the power over your choices. You'll lose the ability to choose." "Why?" And I said, "Because you will have carved such a neural pathway in your brain that they will then know they can channel all their ideologies, all their fear, all their false narratives, whatever they want to do. You lose dominion, and the next thing you know, you believe in something that you don't even know why you believe in it."
That's the new level of mind control.
Yeah, and you see people, if you watch on YouTube or whatever, all these channels asking people why they believe in something, and they're like, they get lost. They go, "What? Like there's no such thing as a man or a woman. What? When? What? And what is your logic?" And they're like, because everyone believes that. I don't know. And they get mad usually. I don't like this conversation. They walk off because they're like, they're getting, they're getting triggered because they're like, why do I don't have a good answer for that. And I don't know where that came from, but I do know that if I question that belief, then I'm going to find myself in that position where I now no longer tick all the boxes for my tribe, and I might end up out of my tribe. And so I don't want to even question that. It's dangerous to question that. And so once my kids got that, because it's one thing, and the mistake that most parents make is don't do that. Just don't do that. It's too much. The kids got to know why. Their brain, they're learning, they're everything. Why don't do that? And what is but you also, the why, you have to connect it to their highest values. So both of my kids are athletes, really great athletes. Their sport right now is jiu-jitsu, and they just competed. My oldest got first place this last weekend. It was baseball, and they were both extraordinary baseball players. So I will always use what their highest value is. Okay, when you want to be a baseball player, I'd go through and I'd find the diet of professional baseball players, and I'd show them, like, do you know this pre-game, this guy cuts sugar out for 2 weeks before he does a pre-game? Do you know this guy does that and whatever? And I'll find the guys they love. They'll be like, oh, Eric Jeter and blah, blah, blah. I love it. He's the best. Okay, let me find out. And I'll go through our research, and I'll say, read this. This is how and suddenly they want to eat everything healthy. Oh man, he eats nothing but protein, and oh wow, Derek Jeter said stay away from, hey, we eat that crap, stay away from chocolate before a game. And because they're now, it's instead of it just being compared to right and wrong, which creates sneakiness, because then they rebel because they go, no, I like the taste of chocolate. You're telling me I can't have it. So I'm just going to have it when you're not looking. Instead, it's like, you can have it, but here's what it does to you and your blood sugar, and this is what cancer feeds on. You show them all this stuff, and you'd be surprised at how young people will go, oh, I don't choose that anymore. You don't have to tell me not to do it. I don't want to put that in my body. Good job.
Yeah.
You're teaching them why. The why is so important. And that has been the one thing that has, and it doesn't always work. My little guy still loves, I've been trying so hard to teach him that anything that comes in a package in a freezer has preservatives in it. And here's all the science of why preservatives are bad. And he goes, okay, I'll have that frozen pizza, please. Okay. There's sometimes I say, no, you're not going to have that. I don't want you to, I'm your father. I don't want you to put that in your body. But it's a stage he's at, and he loves his frozen, his chicken nuggets and his pizzas. And they're organic, and they're from Trader Joe's and all that. So they're not the end of the world. But it doesn't always work. He still wants to show his independence, that he understands what dad prefers, and he's still letting his taste buds make the choice for him. But that will end soon, because he'll understand, and it comes up every now and then. He sees something on his own, and he goes, oh yeah, Dad, I saw this thing about, packaged foods, and like one of my favorite guys on YouTube was saying that he has diabetes now. Yeah. Possibility, you got to eat right. And then they start to curb and change their appetite towards what's healthier for them, but my oldest is there, my youngest one is still working through that. But at least they don't eat all the crap and all the candy and stuff that we all ate as kids, somehow survived through it. But that stuff has even changed. We didn't have the chemicals in the food the way we have today. And it's all ultimately comes down to greed. People don't want their food going bad on the shelves because they lose money. So they put stuff in it that will preserve it so it can last on the shelf for a year. And I'll tell them, I said, it's like that thing you bought and you put it in the refrigerator because you only ate half of it. It shouldn't look the way it looks because it's been in there for 3 weeks. It should be moldy, but it's not moldy because it has preservatives in it, and you're putting that into your body. And when they get all that, then they start to take care of themselves most of the time. There's still challenges that we face every now and then. But that's one of the main things is like we've got to let them know why. And if we don't, sometimes my wife doesn't. She'll say, "You're better at that. You give them. They need a metaphor. I don't think they understand it. Okay, metaphor. Let me round up a metaphor for you." So I have a whole collection of these metaphors that I'll share. And my boys will report back, like I was about to make this choice, and then that visual came in, the wheat field or whatever, and I remembered, oh God, I need to take a break, because they've been on sleepovers where their friends are playing for 9 hours straight, and then they become the ones going, guys, pause for a second. This is really bad for you guys. I know we're having a sleepover, it's a special occasion, but is there anything else that we could possibly do than stare at screens the whole time? And that's what inspired my kid, because he'd come home and go, Dad, man, you were right. Like our friends, and they had a couple of friends that didn't play a lot of games, and then it was introduced into their life, and I'm like, he's changing. Like he's not the same guy anymore. And every time we went to his house before, we went to the pool, we went to the field, we played, we did all this stuff. We rode bikes, skateboards, and he's like, he doesn't want to do any of that anymore. And so my son was like, I'm like, well, maybe you're here to help your generation. And so his first film was called To My Generation.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mikki.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate you very much.
I appreciate you. I always have. Yeah, you've always been a good friend, a kind person, and very, very caring friend. And after 2020 of having a lot of friends go away, I've learned to really cherish the ones who stayed.
Well, I appreciate you learning the lessons and sharing the lessons, and coming from a place of love. And I love the fact that you weave in the divinity of all this stuff. And as we learn to navigate this field we're in, one of the important things is what you mentioned about the neural pathways and the addiction cycles.
Yeah.
And being conscious of that. It's not easy.
No.
Because it is real withdrawal. And it does drain you down. And when you're weaker, we're easily controlled.
That's right.
And that's my main concern, is that we get to a point where we don't fight back because the spark's not in there. We're too suppressed. It's a frequency war.
You were right. You're right on the money. And that resignation is where ultimately they want us, and we just can't go there.
Right.
We were born for this. I truly believe that. There's something really, particularly with this latest movie, we're learning so much through understanding what nature holds. And it's just wild to think of all these different species and elements that work together. I mean, out in the world and also in our bodies, like what our bodies are doing right now.
Right.
Just to sit up, just to be cognitive, just to talk, to listen, to speak. It's extraordinary. And when you look at all that, and a large part of what Code of Creation is about is really examining, because the story of Darwin's evolution has fallen apart. There's tons of scientists, and particularly, I don't know if you've seen these, but AI is helping people, because they're starting to ask things like, what are the chances that we evolved in this way? And AI is saying things like, the chance of that would be like you finding a particular grain of sand in all of the world with your eyes blindfolded. Like this is not by random chance. This is not random selection. Like we were told that forever, but the tools that Darwin had couldn't do what the instruments that we have now. And so there's a lot of major scientists that are like, I don't want to go as far as to say I believe in God now, but I'm certainly not an atheist anymore. There's some kind of an intelligence that has put all of this stuff together. And we can't deny that anymore. We have the math, we have the science on it. And whatever that is, I have my own personal beliefs, but I'm speaking in general for the people, because I know that a lot of people that believe their own thing, and that's wonderful. But the moment we believe we're in the top of the food chain and there's nothing beyond us, it's trouble. It's real big trouble. When we understand that there is the thing that stopped I told you earlier that my oldest never lies, my youngest was experimenting with it. The thing that stopped my youngest from experimenting with lying was, I realized, I said, we haven't had enough conversations with our kids about what this thing is called God. And I always say, by whatever name you choose, just as long as you understand that there is an intelligence behind this entire thing, and it's a thing that informs the birds and the insects to do what they do instinctually. It's what gives the baby deer. In front of my house, a deer was born, and I was just amazed at it. I thought I was gonna have to help it, but it was like, I got this dude. It popped up and ran off, and I was like, wow, like it came out of the womb running. Like that's how? Where does that? Like, we have to ponder these things a little deeper than we do now because we're so distracted. But when my little guy was experimenting with lion, I realized, I said, I haven't had enough talks with him about what created him. And so I said to him, I said, you can always get away with lies, human to human. It's pretty easy. You can fool people. But this thing we call God, this creation that created all of life, you can never fool it. And so you actually never get away with a lie. And I told my boys before what karma meant. I said, I believe karma really is. Karma is a self-correction tool. When you've crossed your own boundaries out of your own moral framework, and you've done it, then you punish yourself in some way. Because that is your way of going, I need to stay on my highest path. Because I know that my life, if I stay on my highest path, make my highest choices, and I live a life of meaning and purpose, that I'm here to do great things, and my life's going to just unfold in a divine manner. It won't be the uphill battle that most people struggle with. And as soon as I told that to my boy, that's why when he was lying, he would come and knock on the door, because he's just like, I can't. Yeah, I fooled my dad. I told him I didn't eat the ice cream, but that doesn't feel right anymore. There's something else listening to me that I know. And maybe it's myself, or maybe it's this thing they call God. Whatever it is, it's bigger than me. And one of the things we deal with, and it's one of Donald Trump's biggest flaws, is his ego. Is that it's one of the reasons that when we've seen an artist get up to accept an award, so many times they'll say, thank God, I don't know what else to thank, because if you talk with them and you see them in interviews, they say, this song kind of wrote itself. This movie kind of directed itself. Like, I don't remember doing it. It's that place of being what they call in the zone, like athletes in the zone, where you just realize I'm being used. The instrument is being used. The moment we start to think it's me, we lose our humility. And losing our humility is where all the bad starts to happen. The moment we go, thank you to this incredible intelligence that is pouring through this body instrument. All I have to do is keep the channels open and trust and let it pour. And then I know when people come up to me and someone says, oh my God, thank you for doing whatever you do. I don't take that compliment and think I'm awesome. I saved someone's life. I don't do that. I say, God, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do the work through this body that caused that experience for this person. That's why I said a moment earlier that this podcast that, I don't confuse that with being me. Because the moment you have enough of that, that's why so many actors lose their minds. Because everywhere they go, oh my God, I love you, Robert De Niro. Oh my God, oh God, you were so good in this. Oh my, you were my hero. You were my, and they go, 20, 30 years of that. And they go, they could make a caricature of themselves. And then they don't know what to do when their fame starts to fade. Then they start behaving oddly because they're like, I need to get the attention I used to get, and just being me doesn't do it anymore. So I need to do something. And they get into drugs and they do all kinds of weird stuff because they're trying to capture that feeling of ego gratification, and they never will, because it's not them. And so if there's anything I want to leave people with, it's to step into who you are as hero, and to know that the moment you make that agreement with just being in service to the divine, everything starts to happen in a real mystical kind of magical way in life. And everything that you need will show up when you need it. I can't explain it, but all I know is that Every truth teller, doctor, scientist, people that I've interviewed in the past 5 years have talked about this. They've said, I don't know what's going on here, but my life is turning into this weird miracle. I've never even used the word miracle before.
Yeah.
But something else is in charge. And may that something else carry us into the future that we all came here to co-create.
Thank you, Mikki.
Thank you.
Beautiful.